All right, everybody. Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I'm your host, Michael Voss, Dragon in the Southern Chair. I'm happy to be here with you. It is actually just the political dragon. I'm not in the Southern Chair anymore. And today is August 23rd, 2023. We are expecting the
Again
start.
sometime. Cheers, everyone.
What? Oh, we got some background noise here. We're expecting to see the Republican debate start up any minute now. And it's a little bit of a last minute thing. We were running a little bit behind, and we decided, hey, might as well cover the debate live. Nope. Where is it? I'm waiting to see where it is so I can bring that up for everybody, because we decided that we wanted to cover it live with Fox News, see the coverage, talk about the candidates, see how close we get in our expectations of who's going to come up as number two. Who's going to be the candidate that everyone's going to be seeing as vice president. And we think we're going to get it right. I think it's going to be Tim Scott, but a lot of people like Vivek Ramaswamy. We could be wrong. So we're going to do it live with everybody, see how that turns out. Hopefully everything is up to date. I'm not sure. I know we didn't tell everyone that we were going to be doing this ahead of time, and just got held up throughout our day and weren't able to really let people know ahead of time. We're not on Rumble today because we got behind, and of course we're doing everything late. So instead, we're going to be talking about this debate. Let's see. So I'm trying to get the debate up here. Let's see. And just so you can see what we're doing here. So we're looking on Fox's channel, trying to see, where is their coverage? Let's see if we can find it maybe on a different channel. Is there another channel that would give us this? Nope, that's me being live. There's Crowder is looking to go live with it as well. There's a few people who are looking to go live. But where is my coverage? That's kind of annoying. You would think I'd be able to find it by now. What is this? Get rid of this. Fox debate. Does anyone know the channel that I might be able to find it on? I'm on. Oh, Fox debate live. Come on. Of course, this is what happens when you do everything last minute, when you're going just straight off live. Of course. I don't want the preview. I want the actual debate. No. I don't want someone else's coverage. No. It's the debate in Milwaukee. I just want their coverage. Who's got it? By the way, if anyone knows where the best channel is to grab it, please let me know. As I'm floundering around right now, a little embarrassing because, of course, you would think I would have had it by now, but of course I don't. This is what happens when you do everything last minute live. It just doesn't quite go right the way you expect it to. Yeah. I'm just looking for where is it going to be put. Covered by yes. Politics. Come on. I'm on Fox News itself. I'm trying to find there. You would think it would be easy enough to find, that it would be right on. There we go. Watch TV. Fox News. No, I don't have a subscription. I want. No. Okay. So Fox is being difficult. Who's got it? Wow, this is embarrassing that I can't find it. You'd think I would have had it by now. If I've got to. I don't want to go to David Packman. And I don't want to go to... I just want to get the debate. You know, it's what happens when you don't think it through. When you don't think about everything, all the details. It's my own fault. Can only blame myself. Hey, Matthew J. I saw your comment over on Twitter or X, whatever they want to call it. He thinks Matthew J. of the Matthew J. Show has just made his comment. He was just commenting here on Twitter, mentions that I was thinking that the likely topics tonight are going to be inflation, Maui fires, East Palestine, Ohio, secret documents, you know, all the documents found in Biden's garage, the J6, China versus Taiwan, Ukraine war, and abortion. What they won't be talking about are red flag laws, online censorship, Americans abandoned overseas, and fortifying elections. I think those are all off the topic. As for Big Pharma, as asked by Matthew J., I think that's going to be an off-limits topic as well. I don't think we're going to see much on that. I think this debate's not going to do as well as some might expect it to do because, quite honestly, Trump is going to be competing on Tucker Carlson, and I think that's going to take a lot of the wind away from Fox News. I think Fox News is going to be very upset that they're not going to have numbers. I think Tucker's going to have better numbers. I think Tucker Carlson will beat, is going to beat Fox News. Come on, give me the... Sorry about that. Commercials on YouTube, of course. Nope, that's 18 hours ago. All I want is the debate. Give me the debate. Does anyone have the debate? You would think it would be easy to find. You would think. Let me double check something here. Nope. Okay, it seems like nobody's got it yet. All right, fair enough. I am happy to hear everybody's comments. You won't be able to call into the show yet. Our phone line is down at the moment. As many people may be aware, we moved our studio to the Bronx from Bourbon County. And so in that move, because we had to make that move, we weren't able to bring our full studio over. The costs were too high. And so we weren't able to do bring our phone line with us. We're working on that. Donations help. They help a lot. But even without that, we will be able to see your tweets, your chats, and your comments. You can go on to YouTube. We're live right now. You can go on there. Let us know, and we'll be happy to take your comments and see what you think about what's happening today. Give me a second. I'm trying to bring everything up. Again, we weren't going to go live, but changed my mind, decided, you know what, might as well go live. Why wait? You know, just do it live. And so that's why we're a little bit discombobulated at the moment. In the meantime, let me also show you where is shorts. Let's show you the latest short. Now, on our channel, we just came up. We'll show you John earlier today in J-Rest Break on our shorts came up with his list of winners and losers. Let's play for you. Who John of J-Rest Break, what he picked. Can you hear that? Why does the volume look like it's low? Oops, sorry. Come on, you stupid computer. Sorry about that. Okay, so I don't know if you can hear that. It looks like on my system that didn't come across clearly, and I apologize if it didn't. I thought you could hear John. Our system is set up so you should be able to hear John. Okay, so if you're not hearing him, please let me know. This is my choices. Is that coming across, or am I getting background noise from? Gotta love the Bronx. Lots of background noise. So if anyone is hearing this, please let me know. Are you able to hear the back? Can you hear this? You should be able to hear everything. So basically, to sum it up, we were going over all the different candidates and trying to figure out who's going to be what. We think that Tim Scott's going to be the big choice. That Tim Scott's going to be the VP because he's black and he gets along well with the establishment GOP. The alternative choice would be Nikki Haley, who we think she would be a pick also because she's well connected to the establishment and she has a lot of experience internationally, but also she's a woman. So those would be the two top picks, and that's what this debate really is about: is who's going to be the VP, who's going to be in the cabinet. That's what we believe is the ultimate choice that's happening here tonight. And where is it? Is it live? I don't see it. Fox should be showing. You would think that Fox News would be having this on all of its content, but it really isn't, which is kind of annoying. Let me see if I can find it anywhere else. I'm just trying to see if I can find it anywhere, if it's being covered anywhere. No, I'm not finding it. Why am I having so much trouble finding something that simple? You would think it would be easy. No one else has started yet. Oh, 8:30. Everyone's expecting it to start about 8:30. Okay, maybe I'm a half hour ahead of time. Fantastic. But I'm always happy to hear everyone else's thoughts. And I think I've got my sound correct. If it's not, please let me know because I'm having some problems. Again, our system is, well, it's not perfect. Since we moved over to the studio in the Bronx, we've had some back and forth issues. Please let me know. But overall, the big thing that I want to talk about is, what do you think? Do you think that this is a debate that's actually about who's going to run for president or who's running for VP? Do you think that this is a race, this debate? Is it about who's going to be in the cabinet or something else? In fact, let me put that up on the screen as one of the opening questions. So that's our comment right there to start with. Do you think this will be a debate about who's going to be VP or who's going to be president? That is the biggest question I think that needs to be answered for the nation. Assuming that President Trump is healthy, he's not going to be in jail. That's not going to happen. They're going to try and indict him at least one more time between now and January of 2024. So expect at least one more indictment coming down the road. They're going to try him somewhere in about April of 2024 to try and keep him off of all of the ballots. Just about the same time that all of the various states are going to be going to their Republican primaries and voting for President Trump. So who are they going to be throwing off the ballot? That's a big question. Is it going to be Trump? I don't think so. He's going to be on the ballots and he's going to be running. So who else is going to be there? And what I think is everyone's looking to see if they can get a cabinet position with a VP somewhere in the next administration of President Trump, so that in 2028 they have a leverage to be able to jump off and to try and run for themselves, to run in their own ticket. And I don't think there's a lot of people who can do that in 2028. I think Vivek Ramaswamy is a choice. I think Tim Scott and Nikki Haley are choices. I think Ron DeSantis blew himself up. He went too soon. He's gone too hard after Trump. He hasn't separated himself enough to stand up. And while he had a lot of issues that sounded very interesting, he hasn't addressed anything about international policy. He really hasn't made himself unique. Not unique enough to take on President Trump. Very often, what have we heard? That Ron DeSantis is Trump light. And if he's going to be Trump light, why go after him? I think Trump said that himself. Why go and get Trump light when you can have Trump himself? And we do know that, of course, Ron DeSantis is more of an establishment man. So that is a problem. I think that people like Doug Burnham, no one knows who he is. No one cares. He may not even be on the stage tonight because he was playing basketball yesterday, got an injury, and went to the emergency room, so he may not even show up. Not that anyone knows who he is, not that anyone cares anything about him. So he's got a long way to go. I think he's going to stay in the race until the end of the year because he doesn't need a lot of money because he doesn't have a big campaign. So he can try and coast by, try and get into the next debate, try and build up some momentum as we see Chris Christie. He's going to drop out really soon. Mike Pence will be dropping out. So he wants to be one of the last people standing to try and make some money. But the fact that he may not be in the first debate means he's going to be gone. Jan has a comment. Jan says, "Evening, Voss. Are you covering the debate tonight?" I'm trying to. I believe the candidates believe they are debating for the presidency, and I don't think Trump will be picking any of them for VP. That's an interesting take. Thank you, Jan. Why do you think that, Jan? I definitely think one of these people will be vice president. I don't see anyone else who's in the field of the Republicans that Trump would pick. Almost everyone else is establishment. Jim Jordan, who would also be a possible pick, he's in charge of the Freedom Caucus, but Jim Jordan is very secure in being in Congress. He can be in Congress for the next 20 years without any trouble. So I don't see Jim Jordan going. I don't see anyone. Matt Gaetz, same thing. He's secure in his position in Congress. I don't see him running for VP. I don't see MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't see her leaving Congress to run for VP. She's secure in her position. I don't see any of the non-establishment Republicans in Congress giving up their position right now, other than Tim Scott. And Tim Scott's doing it because he's pretty secure, and he has the one thing that the others don't have. Besides the connection to the establishment of the GOP, Tim Scott is black. And that's something that makes a difference, especially in the South. It breaks the stranglehold that Kamala Harris has. That, okay, she's a woman of color. Well, Tim Scott is a man of color. And so that promotes an area for the GOP that they've been somewhat weak. But, looking at 2020, President Trump got 20% of the black male vote. Having Tim Scott there would increase that number. And that's somewhere that the Democrats are absolutely weak. And they know that they have not done enough for the black Americans across this nation. They have failed. Biden has completely failed. Bidenomics is hurting poor people, black people, minorities more than anyone else. And as much as he keeps trying to blow smoke at people saying, hey, everything's great, everyone's looking at their bank account, they're looking at their bills, they're looking at their shopping and saying no. So I don't think that's something that's going to work. Jan goes on to say, I don't think that the best person for VP is in the field. If Trump was smart, he will pick someone who isn't a career politician. Hopefully, if he wins the presidency, he will be more careful with his cabinet as well. I think he learned hard lessons last time. I agree. He did learn a lot of hard lessons, but I think he also learned that he needs someone as an intermediary between President Trump and the Congress. He needs someone who can negotiate the high-end politics, the establishment politics, to get things passed. It's not just enough for him to push it. He still needs Congress to push his issues to get those things through, to get the appropriations, the funding in there. So I think he's still going to need some career politicians, but I think he's going to be looking for someone who's not quite the moderate that we found out Mike Pence turned out to be. And that's one of the reasons why I think Mike Pence, he's not going to do well tonight, because he can't answer the question, why did you flip? He was 100%. I have a video of him talking in 2020. It was February 2020. He's at CPAC. He's talking up President Trump. He's 100% behind President Trump. And after J6, after we see now that that Mike Pence wants to run for president, he's trying to throw Trump under a bus. He suddenly changed his position. I don't think anything Mike Pence says will change the public's opinion of him as a turncoat and someone who is an opportunist, who's looking to advance his political career, not look out for the American people. He's too much of a politician. So that's the problem Mike Pence has, and that's why I think after September, he's going to be out of this race. He's going to run out of money. He has no steam. No one really is paying attention to him. I think he's running at about between 3 and 5%, depending on the poll. That's not enough. Those are Kamala Harris numbers in 2016. It's not going to get him to the finish line. I don't think Mike Pence can pull this through. And I don't think he has a connection with the public. As he's going to speak tonight, I don't think he has a really solid connection. So that will be interesting to see. I think Vivek Ramaswamy has a massive connection with the public right now. He is a populist. He is talking about the things the public wants to talk about. I think Vivek is well in line. And to answer your question, Jan, he's not really a career politician. The one thing why I don't think Vivek will be VP, even though I think he wants that, is that he doesn't have enough political experience, both internationally as well as domestically. He's not someone that Congress and the Senate, they're not going to follow a Vivek. He's too much of an upstart for them. And that's just because of the way politics is. It's the old boys club, it's the old women's club, it's the guys who've been in there for the last couple of decades. He's a new upstart, and so they're going to be very anti-Vivek Ramaswamy. They're going to be against him because he's not one of their own. And so that's what I think holds him back from being VP. He's not going to be efficient enough. And I think President Trump is very much about what is efficient and effective as a president. Right now, we're seeing in the Biden-Harris administration what happens when you have a president who isn't efficient or effective, who isn't a leader in any respect, and someone who's just chasing the next election. That's what the Biden-Harris administration has been defined by. And thus we see our allies, our enemies, everyone is confused, and we see the world is leaderless right now, which is why there's so much crime, so much terrorism, so much preparation and logistics for war going on right now. So rather than see that continue, I think you will see President Trump take on someone else besides Vivek to be able to move that ahead. In my video today, I put in that I thought that Vivek would make a great choice as maybe Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Labor. I think he could do a job there where his big business acumen would work in his favor, where he could leverage his business contacts, his knowledge, and his vision and get to know the public as well as other politicians and world leaders. And that would give him an opportunity for 2028 because he would be filling that gap that he doesn't have right now in terms of politics. And that's where, again, I see Tim Scott filling that gap and doing very well with it. Let me see if I can find this again. Jan, if you know where it's playing, where the live feed for Fox News is playing, please let me know, because I'm trying to find it and I am just not getting it anywhere. This is what happens when I do everything last minute. So I apologize to everyone that I get the debate stage. Where is David Pakman, the Blaze? I don't want coverage of anyone else. I just want Fox News. And I'm not finding it. I'm not finding just Fox News. Come on, guys. Just give me the one thing I'm looking for. Give me your live stream. And I am just not finding it. So if you see it, Jan, if you see where it's playing live right now, please let me know so I can go right to it, because I'm not seeing the live stream and this is my fault. Jan says, looking for live feed on YouTube myself as I no longer, yeah, I know. I don't have the Fox. I haven't watched cable TV in about 15 years. So I don't have the Fox channel, and I'm trying to find a way to find this for everybody. And I'm not seeing it on Twitter. I'm not seeing it on YouTube at the moment. And you would think that it would be on YouTube somewhere, but everybody's coverage is them talking, of course. But it's not on. I mean, even if I go to Fox right now, this is Fox's channel themselves, and all I'm seeing is their coverage with someone else, which I don't want. And you would think this would be up live. So I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to find it, folks. Oh my God, I feel so embarrassed that I didn't look this up and have it ready ahead of time. I'm just an idiot. I'm just screwed up. Let me see. Anybody. Blaze have it? Nope. See, everybody's still talking right now. So it hasn't started yet. Trying to find it. All right, well, while I'm doing that. So I think I've answered your question. Hang on one second. Oh, after dog. So that's my reasoning about Vivek Ramaswamy, Mike Pence. Ron DeSantis has effectively, we've seen, he's blown up his campaign. I mean, we saw that, what has he done? He's losing his major donors. Donors want him to go more to the middle, to try and be more of a moderate. He's already pissed off a lot of people, even within the Republican ranks. Lately, his biggest mistake right now is he just said all of the Trump supporters are listless. Really? That's straight out of what Hillary Clinton said about half the country. It didn't make any sense. You're talking about 76 million people who voted for President Trump, and let's assume at least half of them are serious and significant supporters of President Trump right now. It's part of the reason why he's leading the entire field of Republicans by 60. He's got 67% support. rank and file Republicans and Americans across America, and Ron DeSantis decides to insult them? I mean, that's straight out of Disney these days, that you just want to insult your base. You want to insult the people who are going to be the voters, the ones who make the votes, make the donations, and that's supposed to get them on your side? Didn't work for Hillary Clinton. I don't see it working for Ron DeSantis. On top of his campaign has already switched up, 3 different times that he's changed up his entire team because his messaging is bad, because he's not reaching enough people and he's not reaching them positively. That's bad leadership from the top. He's made bad choices and his corrections have been rocky at best, so I don't see that improving for him. That is a problem. So again, I don't see Ron DeSantis making it forward. I think he jumped the gun. As many people have said, that he should have waited until 2028. He would have been able to have a free and clear field. He would have had time to build up his reputation, to address international issues, which he doesn't really address, to really stand out as his own man, and to possibly get support from President Trump, which is part of the reason why he got into Florida in the first place, to make friends in Congress and throughout the Republican establishment, so that he wouldn't have to worry and he'd be able to build up a war chest between now and he'd have 4 years building up his war chest. So that would have been really effective for Ron DeSantis. He didn't do that. Again, that's his problem. That's a mistake he made. And I think that's going to cost him a lot when it comes down to it. Again, I'm still looking for, I don't want people's commentary. I just want the debate itself. And I am just not finding the debate itself, which is annoying. You would think I'd have this by now. No one seems to have it. Really? No one on YouTube is showing it? It's kind of crazy. Crowder's up. Let's see. Crowder's up and he's on. He's doing the debate live himself. And he's talking along. He's got his crew going. Yeah, Jen is mentioning that they may not be talking about it live until it actually, or showing the debate until it goes live. I'm pretty sure that's the case because everybody still has their pundits like I'm talking right now. They're talking as well. So that may be it. And everyone's trying to get the feel of what America thinks. What do Democrats think about this? I've heard from a lot of people, they're tired of hearing about President Trump, but one of the things, and I've seen this in a couple of comments, not only to my videos, not only to my channel and the J Rest Break, but seeing it throughout all media. We're seeing a lot of people saying, well, I'm tired of hearing about President Trump, indictment. And they've tuned it out. But the thing I find interesting about that is that's not because of President Trump. That's because of Democrats. Since 2006, we're talking about 7 years now, they have not stopped talking about President Trump every single day. I mean, non-stop. They have not stopped mentioning President Trump's name every single day since 2016. And they have always painted him in the most negative light that they can possibly imagine. Even when they make up things like Russia collusion, even when they made up the phone call with the Ukraine, when they have accused him and his family of everything under the sun, and time again, they have been proven wrong. I'm not surprised that people are like, I'm tired of hearing this. But at the same time, that's a strategy. That's a propaganda tool and strategy by the Democrats to constantly have his name and associate it with negatives to either try and demoralize voters so they don't show up on election day and they don't get involved, or to deny him funding, to try and deny him votes because they've associated him so negatively with so many people about their feelings. This is about trying to change people's emotions and either discourage them from voting or to change how they're going to vote. And I think that's really insidious. I think it's vicious. I think it's wrong, and I think it's a big problem. And it's been really, really effective. I think it was effective in 2020. I think it's going to be effective in 2024. That we're going to see millions of people not vote because they've had their feelings turned off. They've been made apathetic. Of course, the turnaround about that, the other part of that is that means that these are Americans who are no longer going to be voting. When you stop someone, when you make someone apathetic about voting, they don't vote again. It is very hard to turn around that feeling, to make them energized to get back to voting, to make them want to be involved in the process, to make them think that they can be involved in the process. And I think Democrats, they're doing that on purpose because the less people that they have that are voting, the more easily Democrats are able to win elections. They try and turn away. They want a smaller pool of people that are easier to manipulate with their emotions. That's what I believe. Now, I could be wrong about that, and I'm happy to hear anyone's comments if they think I am wrong about that. But I think that's been a long-term propaganda goal, which is why we always hear all the news media constantly, every day, mentioning President Trump's name and trying to associate him with something negative. He's guilty, he's been indicted. I mean, they're using the concept of an indictment as if that is proof of guilt, which it isn't. Whether you like President Trump or not, everything I'm talking about has nothing to do with whether you like President Trump or not. It has to do with what is being done in our political system, how it has been turned into a tool of propaganda. And I think that's really important because they are literally using these tricks of propaganda, of manipulation of the public through emotions to try and as they called it in 2020, they fortify elections. That's their thing. They're trying to fortify the election. Remember that? That came out from Newsweek about all of the big tech companies, the news media companies, how they fortified the election to make sure that Joe Biden would win. In any other election anywhere else in the world, that would be called election interference. That would be called rigging the election. And that election would be considered an irregular election, which I know YouTube hates me mentioning, but that's what it would be. In any other nation, if you were fortifying an election, that would not be considered a legit election anywhere else in the world. But this is what we have to deal with these days. This is what we have to go through when we deal with modern politics, with Google, with YouTube, with Facebook, with Twitter, with the big tech companies, and how they want to manipulate the way people get to see information. How we see that the Biden administration, Democrats have pushed forward the Disinformation Governance Board. This is all about manipulating what you get to see and how you get to feel about it. It's straight out of 1984. This is Big Brother kind of manipulations that are ongoing. That's how I feel about it. Now, again, you may think, Mike, you're wrong. Okay, I'm happy to hear. If you think I'm wrong, tell me why. I'm happy to hear that. Let's have that conversation. But I think that's what we're seeing. And I think that's part of the reason why Trump is going to blow away the entire debate on Fox with his appearance on Tucker Carlson. I think Tucker is going to do fantastic tonight. I think he's going to get record-breaking numbers who are going to watch his conversation with Trump while everyone else is playing second fiddle. Because I don't think anyone in the nation thinks that the Republicans are going to pick anyone else but Trump. Not because they're some kind of mindless slave. This is the kind of thing that we hear from people on Twitter. They constantly want to say, well, you're just listening to Trump because if you listen to George Takei or some of the others, you're just a mindless Trumper. No, it's just that Trump is the best candidate. He's the strongest choice. Whether you like him or not has nothing to do with it. You shouldn't be voting for anyone in politics because you like them, because that's meaningless. That has nothing to do with whether or not they're capable. Liking someone is just like voting for someone because of the color of their skin, or their sex, or their sexual preference. That's meaningless. That's not a reason to vote for someone in any election. I don't care if you like them. I don't care if they're male or female. I don't care if they're straight or gay. I don't care if they are white, black, polka dots. It doesn't matter. Are they effective? That's what an election is supposed to be about. Are they effective? Are they efficient? Do you believe that they will be effective or efficient? Because if they're not, it's a wasted vote. That's a wasted person. They don't belong in politics if they're just going to be milquetoast and they're just going to go with the flow, follow the party line. I mean, for that, if you want that, then you'd vote for Josh Riley in the New York 19. You'd vote for Mitt Romney. But that's not going to get you anything positive. That's not going to be a good result for the nation. And at this moment, in 2024, we can't afford to have a milquetoast president. We can't afford to have somebody who's not effective and strong. We need a candidate. We need a choice that is going to be respected and feared around the world. We need someone who can make the terrorists around the world, the rogue nations of the world, come to heel, to pull back and relax and calm down and slow down. That's what we need in 2024. And whether you like the person doing that or not is immaterial. Is can they do that? And we know for a fact Joe Biden isn't that guy. No one in the world takes Joe Biden seriously about any of his threats. Putin doesn't care. Chairman Xi out of Communist China doesn't care. Kim Jong-un out of North Korea doesn't care. Ayatollah Khamenei in Iran doesn't care. None of them are worried about him. None of them fear him. None of them have respect for him. We can't afford to have another president who isn't feared and respected. Now, again, when I look at the entire field of Republicans out there, I don't see any of them being feared and respected in the way that we see President Trump. We need someone who is like George G.W. Bush. We need someone who's like Ronald Reagan. We need a president who is strong and has an impact on the global politic, especially with rogue nations. We need a cowboy. I truly believe that. In 2024, we need a cowboy. And Democrats obviously don't have that. I mean, if you have Marianne Williamson, she's about hugging crystals. Are you kidding me? We've got RFK Jr., and what does he want? He wants to stick his head in the sand, be an isolationist. And I understand Dr. Rand Paul and Ron Paul, they both want to be isolationist and just say, well, we're just going to stay away from the rest of the world. You can't do that. We're the superpower of the world. We're the super economy of the world. We can't not be involved. We have to be involved. So sticking your head in the sand, while it may sound good, it isn't effective. Not when we're the top of the heap, the leader of the world, the leader of democracy in the world. You can't put your head in the sand. So the Democrats, even if they got rid of Joe Biden tomorrow, they don't have a better choice. They have no one who is respected internationally. They have no one who is strong. Everyone expects every single Democrat that is out in the field right now, they're all willing to run away. We need someone who's going to run to it. It's kind of like being in the Marines. I'm going to get to your comment 1 second, Jan. What we need is a president who is like a fireman, who is like a policeman, who is like the military, the Marines. We need a president who is going to run to the fire. They're going to run to the problem to fix it, to solve it. We don't need someone who's going to run away and put their head in the sand, or they're just going to appease everybody and sit in the background. That's not going to win. Jan says they keep the focus on Trump because they don't want you to focus on how bad of a President Biden is, or how corrupt the administration is. Well, that's another reason why they're doing it. But they can't hide from that. We've seen the corruption. And as much as we keep hearing, the news media keeps saying, well, no, we're not sure about this. but we have evidence. We know that there are bank accounts that are not in dispute that show that Joe Biden was receiving at up to $5 million as early as 2015 while he was vice president under Obama. So we know the potential of corruption goes back to the time when he was vice president at the least. We know that based on emails that Joe Biden himself have written and have been confirmed that he was involved with his son's business, dealing with international companies that were connected to international governments, in particular in China. We know this. This is a fact. So as much as the media wants to downplay that, these are the facts at hand. And we know that the potential of corruption is skyrocketing. It's as high as it could possibly be. They don't want us to think about that. It's the same way that they don't want us to think of Bidenomics as something negative. But yet, Bidenomics has brought us sky-high inflation, 17% inflation, 12% food inflation. It's devalued the dollar. The dollar is worth about 11% less today than on February 20 of 2021. That's a fact. We're not energy independent, we're dependent and competing against our allies for energy sources, which is driving up the cost for everyone in the world, hurting our allies as well as hurting our nation. There are fewer business owners today than just a year ago, which is less than in 2020. We're losing. This is not good. We have more people getting laid off month by month. I know of several businesses that just in August started their first wave of layoffs. Not that they're done laying off people. The first wave of planned layoffs just happened in August. And they have more coming up in September, October. So we keep being told everything's fine. It's all fantastic. It's all good. You're just too dumb to understand it. That's what the media keeps telling you. Yeah, the economy is great. You just don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand because I look at my bank account, I look at my bills, I look at when I go to the store. It doesn't make any sense. So I understand why they need to make a villain to distract us from the corruption and failure that we're seeing around us. It's one of the things that I wish would be in the debate tonight, that I wish President Trump would be talking about when he speaks to Tucker Carlson. There are 30,000 Americans. We have been talking about this since September 1st of 2021. We're about to get on year 3 of reminding every member of Congress and the American people. There are 30,000 Americans that were thrown under a bus by the Biden-Harris administration. There are 30,000 Americans who are being tortured, many of them being tortured as we speak. 5,000 Americans in Afghanistan, 10,000 in the Ukraine, 15,000 in the Sudan. These are minimum numbers, not the maximum. There are at least 30,000 Americans in 3 years that Joe Biden has just thrown away. We need to do something about that. We can't live with this. This is weakness and it's hurting America. And I have absolutely no reason to believe, I don't think anyone has any reason to believe that in 2024, if between now and then, that there will be even more Americans thrown under a bus, just ignored, not paid attention to. Quite possible. I don't think that's illogical to see. But yet, the news media doesn't want to talk about that. They stopped talking about Sudan. They won't mention Americans in Ukraine when they talk about the Ukraine. They won't even mention anything about Afghanistan. We just had the 2-year anniversary. The Taliban's parading up and down Kabul in American vehicles. Why did they get them? Because Joe Biden gave them these vehicles. They're running around with American weapons because Joe Biden gave it to them. They have an army because Joe Biden gave it to them. And the American news media didn't even notice. Like, what? So, you mean the Taliban has an army? Who knew that? Where could they have possibly gotten those weapons from? We have no idea. They just made it, just magically appeared. No. But they don't want you to think about that. You're not supposed to remember that. You're supposed to forget and move on. And sadly, I want to hear from any Republican. I don't care where they are, what they're running for. I want to hear any of them come up and say, hey, by the way, guess what? I have a plan to get back 30,000 Americans and bring them home to make sure they're safe. That's what I want to hear. If I could hear anything, if there's any one answer I could hear from any Republican, any Libertarian, any Democrat running for 2024, that's the question I want answered. What are you going to do about the 30,000 Americans that have been thrown under a bus and left for dead? What will you do? Because I guarantee you, in 2024, whatever the answer is to that question, if we see the next president, I don't care who it is, and if they do nothing about trying to save those 30,000 Americans, the world will get worse. We will have a regional war with China. We will see the war in Ukraine get worse. We will see the Middle East turn into a ball of fire. It's going to happen if we do not have someone who is willing to stand up and get those Americans back home. And yet, Brett Baier, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, Tucker Carlson, not one person in the major mainstream news media will bring this up. They will not ask this question of any candidate. There's the other problem in America right now. I'm back in the Bronx, and 2 to 3 times a night, I get to hear the police or a fire truck running past me. In a neighborhood that 50 years ago, you didn't hear a single truck. 20 years ago, you didn't hear the police or the trucks. During the height of the crack epidemic, I didn't hear so many police cars, so many fire trucks on a nightly basis. That's the other problem that isn't going to be addressed tonight. We're not going to be talking about how do we resolve this massive increase in crime, partially because we see the major cities, all the major democratic cities, to try to defund the police, which allowed an escalation of crime, and we have no way of trying to figure out how to get rid of that. We have not addressed how to lower that. And that's another question that should be in the debate tonight, that should be asked either by Trump, Tucker to Trump, or anywhere else. And I know that Tucker is talking right now with President Trump. I know that that's happening. That's live as we speak. But I'm looking for the Republicans. Where's the Republicans? Come on. Debate analysis. Jen, did you see it? I don't see the debate yet. Everything I'm seeing is still people talking. I think the candidates are okay. Looks like Fox is now. They're singing the national anthem, I believe. Yeah, I'm trying to check that now. Thank you, Jen. I am checking live now. They're talking about the Russian plane crash. I'm waiting for it. I just saw that it looked like they were doing the national anthem at the debate. And so that should be starting up shortly. So I'm trying to check. I'm checking for it, folks. Now, I've been covering a lot of different things, which we may have heard me talk about on the Sunday live streams. We've been doing that for 5 years. And so these aren't new things that I've been talking about today. These are things that we've been talking about for the last year and a half. These are issues that have been preeminent for America for almost since the beginning of the Biden-Harris administration. But they've become more and more important month by month. we have to talk more about these things. We need someone who has an answer to these problems. Yeah, I'm trying to find another channel as well, but I haven't found it yet. And again, I'm happy to hear from anyone if they have a channel, if they are aware of the debate being covered anywhere else. So anyone can type in. And by the way, anyone can type in, just like you've seen Jen typing in. You too can type and leave your chat either on YouTube, on Facebook, on D Live. We're not on Rumble today just because of the way everything came together. But I'm happy to hear your comments, to hear each and every one of you. If you think that Ron DeSantis or Vivek Ramaswamy, if you think it's Mike Pence or, I don't know, any of the other, Asa Hutchinson, if you think they're better choices, I'd love to hear your comments about that. Tell me who you think, before we get started, who do you think is the best choice? I'm happy to hear that. Or what is the issue? What is the, matter of fact, let me leave this up here. Let me ask this question. So I just asked a question up for the chat for anyone to answer here. What do you think is the single most important question candidates will be asked tonight? What is the single number one thing that you want to hear? Ryan, what's Ryan doing? No, okay, so Ryan Fournier he's listening to Tucker and Trump do a debate. Joe Walsh is anti-Trump. He's got Trump derangements. Liz Cheney is also Trump derangement. They're out of their minds. I mean, if we're checking out Twitter right now, you can see. So Joe Walsh, he's got his issues. You can't support the rule of law and support Donald Trump. Wait a minute, what about Joe Biden? The violations of Joe Biden and the Biden family. He wants to ignore that, and he's happy to support Joe Biden, but he hates Trump, and he's hated Trump since day one. We've got Republicans against Trump, which are Liz Cheney, and the Lincoln Project. Really, then you're not really supporting the conservative values in America right now. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. What is this? Kamala Harris is with Ketanji Jackson Brown. Both of them. Two women who were elected because of the color of their skin and their sex, not because of their qualifications. Really, that's quite embarrassing. But that's what's going on Twitter right now. That's the conversation that we see in this nation. So Jan says the question she wants to see answered tonight by any of the candidates is how they will hold up the Constitution and stop subverting it. Will they stop the overreach of government? That's a good question. And I would love to see them do that. I would love to see them finally pull back and get back to the Constitution, get back to some of the restrictions that are inherent and should be inherent in our government. I would love to see that. I don't know that that's going to happen. And I don't think any of them are going to do that. Let's see, come on. Can I find it? Because it should be started now. It's 9 o'clock. Where is it? I know they were just... No. 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 All right, kill me. I am not seeing anybody covering this live. I mean, literally, I'm looking right now and see, here's the problem. Just so you guys can see what I'm saying here. Yeah, David Pakman's the only one I see. But, I mean, no matter where you go, if you're looking, and this tells you something, YouTube is not showing, I guarantee you, there are people who are watching this that it's live on some channel on YouTube right now. Besides David Pakman, let's go there. I'll listen to, because it's Crowder and Pakman. Those are the only two choices.
Of dollars on lousy paintings. That is wrong. We also cannot succeed when the Congress spends trillions and trillions of dollars. Those rich men north of Richmond have put us in this situation. And finally, we need to lower your gas prices. We're going to open up all energy production. We will be energy dominant again in this country. I showed it could be done in the state of Florida. I pledge to you as your president, we will get the job done, and I will not let you down.
Governor DeSantis, thank you.
I guess his debate prep was yell. That'll make you seem...
Now, I apologize because this is David Pakman who's in here. And
charismatic.
Would you be better on the economy than him?
Well, look, I do agree predominantly with what Governor DeSantis just laid out. I think that if you asked every one of us up here, that we would agree predominantly with what he just laid out. Here's the difference. The difference is that we're going to have to work and make sure that we sell these ideas and be able to put ourselves in a position where we get a majority of the vote, not only by winning the Congress and the Senate in 24, but also by having someone who's had the experience of doing it. Now, I was elected as a conservative Republican in a blue state with 61% of the vote, with a Democratic legislature against me the entire time. And we still, through hard, strong decision-making, brought them around to our point of view. We cut taxes in New Jersey. We cut debt in New Jersey. We made sure that each and every time we were confronted with bad Democratic ideas, we stood and stopped them. And when there were good ideas, we brought people together to make progress going forward.
Christie has no chance in hell.
Are the things we need to do to fight waste. And I'd say the last thing is this, Brett. We cannot sit by any longer and allow the kind of spending that's going on in Washington, because every dollar they spend is a dollar that these people are not allowed to spend on their children and their grandchildren. It's robbing our country, and it's wrong.
Well, Governor, let me just follow up very quickly. New Jersey, when you were governor, had the second lowest...
Yeah, Christie's sounding...
I don't want to take away from David Pakman. I don't want to cut into his commentary, so I apologize for that.
Done that, but when you look at what we did on debt, Brett, in that state, we cut debt in that state, debt that had been left to us by 3 Democratic gubernatorial predecessors of mine who ran up that debt tremendously. And what you also saw us do was to cut the unemployment rate in half. It was over 10% when I became governor in 2010. What we also did was cut pension payments to public employees to make sure that taxpayers were not being soaked by a public employee union system that was killing the taxpayer.
Thank you, Governor.
Governor Scott, Tim Scott, Senator Scott,
I don't know,
excuse
guys.
me. The song also goes after welfare programs. As a senator, now President Biden argued for freezing federal spending, this was back in the 80s, and dealing with sacred cows. He does not talk about that anymore. You have been a senator, though, for 10 years. So what have you done to rein in the increasing size of government?
Well, thank you for the question.
Over the last several years, I've had an opportunity to vote against spending package after spending package after spending package. What we also need to understand is that Joe Biden's Bidenomics has led to the loss of $10,000 of spending power for the average family. When you see 16% inflation, your gas is up 40%.
Real quick, every candidate so far attacking Biden.
Hold on.
But that's not a justification for...
Okay, again, I don't want to take away from David Pakman. He has his voice.
And allowing the decisions to be made at their own houses. I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017. We cut taxes for a single mom like the one that raised me by 70%, for dual households by 60%, returning to the average family $4,000. If you don't send it to Washington, we can't spend it. That's good news for the American people.
Okay, but just to follow up, you did, during the Trump administration, you approved $4.4 trillion, $4.1 trillion, $1.7 trillion over the course of that administration. That's a lot of money.
There's no doubt that during the Trump administration, when we were dealing with the COVID virus, we spent more money. But here's what happened at the end of our time in the majority. We had low unemployment, record low unemployment, 3.5% for the majority of the population, 70-year low for women. African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians had an all-time low, but our inflation was at 2%. Under Joe Biden, we've seen the exact opposite. We've seen inflation explode, which led to 12 increases. That's devastating home buyers today.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you're listening to these answers.
If I may,
hold on one second.
We're going to, I don't know if I get a chance to respond.
He didn't mention you specifically, but we'll be with you in a second, Mr. Vice President.
We'll be
Mr.
with you in a
Ramaswamy,
moment, please. Take a number.
Listening to all of this, why should voters choose you over more experienced politicians on this stage? You know, a blank slate for people. You're 38 years old. You've said that you only voted in 2 presidential elections before this moment, this political race.
So first, let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician, Brett. You're right about that. I'm an entrepreneur. My parents came to this country with no money 40 years ago.
How did that work out?
I have gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies. I did it while marrying my wife, Apurva, raising our 2 sons, following our faith in God. That is the American dream. And I am genuinely worried that that American dream will not exist for our 2 sons and their generation unless we do something about it. And I do think Brett is going to take an outsider, because for a long time we have professional politicians in the Republican Party who have been running from something. Now is our moment to start running to something, to our vision of what it means to be an American today. If you have a broken car, you don't turn over the keys to the people who broke it again. You hand it over to a new generation to actually fix the problem. That's why I'm in this race, and we're just getting warmed up.
It's interesting, but that's very populist, but not really an answer.
To turn around this economy that we've heard all of these voters talking about tonight, then Mr. Ramaswamy, who is a successful entrepreneur nationally right now, he's beating you in the polls.
Well, I don't care about polls. What I care about, the fact is that no one is telling the American people the truth. The truth is that Biden didn't do this to us. Our Republicans did this to us, too. When they passed that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill, they left us with 90 million people on Medicaid, 42 million people on food stamps. No one has told you how to fix it. I'll tell you how to fix it. They need to stop the spending. They need to stop the borrowing. They need to eliminate the earmarks that the Republicans brought back in. And they need to make sure they understand these are taxpayer dollars. It's not their dollars. And while they're all saying this, you have Ron DeSantis, you've got Tim Scott, you've got Mike Pence. They all voted to raise the debt.
Here we go.
And Donald Trump added $8 trillion to our debt, and
now
our kids are never going to forgive us for this. And so at the end of the day, you look at the 2024 budget, Republicans asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks. Democrats asked for $2.8 billion. So you tell me who are the big spenders. I think it's time for an accountant in the White House.
Well, yes, that's true. Nikki Haley has a lot of experience, so we gotta love that.
4% of voters say the cost of groceries is a, quote, major problem for them.
Right.
You blamed the Biden administration spending for that increase. But as vice president, your administration spent more than any prior, $7.8 trillion added to the national debt, $3.5 trillion of that before COVID. So does that mean that you're part of the spending problem?
First off, thanks for the question. Thanks for letting me respond to a reference to our administration's record. I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. I mean, in 4 short years, we rebuilt our military. We revived our economy. We unleashed American energy. And we appointed 3 conservatives to the Supreme Court that gave the American people a new beginning for the right to life. Now, Martha, you asked earlier who's the most best prepared for this job. And I must tell you, with all due respect to all of my friends on the stage, and even to one that's probably looking on, I think unquestionably I am the best prepared, the most tested, the most qualified and proven conservative in this race. I was a leader in the Congress of the United States. I led Indiana where we balanced budgets and had a AAA bond rating when I was governor. And as Vice President of the United States, we spent funding to backfill.
But Pence went out and betrayed the American people. He turned coat. He went against his own people, the guy that actually put him as vice president.
We've got to deal with the long-term national debt issues. You got people on this stage that won't even talk about issues like Social Security and Medicare. I mean, Vivek, you recently said a president can't do everything. Well, I got news for you, Vivek. I've been in the hallway. I've been in the...
The president doesn't control the spending of Congress. Congress does. The president doesn't control the spending of Social Security. The president does.
Path to growth and...
Correction, the Congress does. The president doesn't do that.
Just as I did in Congress and as governor.
Mr. Vice President.
And when I was vice president.
But, I mean,
Hold on. You were named earlier. I'm going to give Vivek first.
We'll get to both of
Yeah,
them.
this isn't that complicated, guys. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear.
Yes, nuclear. Nuclear is important, critical.
Stay at home. Reform the U.S. Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations acting like a wet blanket on the economy. So I'm not sure I exactly understood Mike Pence's comment, but I'll let you all parse that out. For me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on it.
Well, let me explain it to you.
Well, no, you can't. You really can't. The president doesn't have control of that.
I sometimes struggle with the reading comprehension.
Look, I was a House conservative leader before it was cool.
It's never been cool.
That was the last time we actually reduced the national debt in the United States, when I was the leader of House conservatives. I balanced budgets and cut taxes when I was governor. I mean, look, Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad.
Yes.
Now is not the time for on-the-job training. We don't need to bring in a rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience.
That's a bit rough. Because look at how good all the people with experience have done. Think about how good everyone with experience has done.
And you are up, Governor DeSantis.
So here's the thing. Why are we in this mess? Part of it, and a major reason, is because how this federal government handled COVID-19 by locking down this economy. It was a mistake. It should have never happened. And in Florida, we led the country out of lockdown. We kept our state free and open. And I can tell you this, as your president, I will never let the deep state bureaucrats lock you down. You don't take somebody like Fauci.
We've already gotten past that. We're well past that. We know what happened with Fauci. We know what happened with COVID. That's not looking forward. That's looking backwards.
You know what? We're going to bring in...
I just want to finish responding to Mike. I just want to respond to Mike for 1 second because he invoked me back. Listen, now that everybody's gotten their memorized, pre-prepared slogans out of the way, we can actually have a real discussion now. The reality and the fact of the matter is...
Was that one of yours?
Not really, Mike, actually. We're just going to have some fun tonight. And the reality is, you have a bunch of people, professional politicians, super PAC puppets, following slogans handed over to them by their 400-page super PACs.
That's
last
harsh.
week. The real choice we face in this primary is this. Do you want a super PAC puppet, or do you want a patriot who speaks the truth? Do you want incremental reform, which is what you're hearing about, or do you want revolution?
Okay.
And I stand on the side of
Revolution is a very strong word. How can he possibly say that? That's dangerous.
On the economy,
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Can I address the
There are
COVID?
two
Democrats
people
will
who
be-
have not, we're going to get
Democrats are going to be jumping on that revolution line, guaranteed.
from, and then from Governor Hutchinson
People
on the
are
economy.
like, who?
Thank you, Martha. And of course, I'm from a town of 300 people. It's a big deal to make it on this stage with all these folks.
Oh, it's Doug.
But
Yeah, they had to put his name up there. No one knows who he is.
they were all wishing me well, and I think I took them a little too literally when they said, go to Milwaukee and break a leg. So,
Right.
but I do want to say on this, we're missing something. We can't just talk about the Biden economy because the economy, energy, and national security are all tied together. Of course, we're paying too much for our energy in our state in our country right now. But part of the reason why is because of the Biden policies on energy. We've got a plan right now, the $1.2 trillion of Green New Deal spending buried in the Inflation Creation Act is something that is just subsidizing China. If we're going to stop buying oil from the Middle East and start buying batteries from China, we're just trading OPEC for Sinopec. And then belatedly, the Biden administration says, no, we're going to put sanctions on Russian oil. Well, we put sanctions on Russian oil, well, then it's 20% off. Who's buying it? China. So if you buy a battery in this country, you buy a solar panel, it's being produced in a plant in China powered by coal, or it's being powered by oil and gas at 20% off. And every farmer in this country would like to buy diesel at 20% off, just like they're buying it in China.
Yeah, so he's not wrong.
Thank you, Grant. Delighted to be here tonight. And let me just tell you
Asa.
that I'm a pro-life
Asa
governor
Hutchinson.
from a conservative state that have a conservative record in which I lowered taxes in Arkansas as governor. I created
one cares
a $2
about
billion
Arkansas.
surplus that I passed over to
No one cares about any of the states that these guys are mentioning. Nobody.
shrunk the size of government.
Wow.
We have 14% fewer state employees in Arkansas after I left government than when I took over as governor 8 years ago. I tell that because that's what we need in Washington.
What's the size of Arkansas is tiny. They got almost as many people as New York City has people. It's not an accomplishment. It really isn't.
Pledged to reduce by 10% our federal non-defense workforce. That's a specific pledge to make that attacks the administrative state. And let me...
Oh, God.
Oops, what happened? Feed went dead? The feed has frozen. Feed is frozen. Oh, well. Did he just get the feed frozen? The feed is frozen. Waiting for it to come back up.
That is important for the future of our country, to be the president of the United States that can lead with positive solutions and be held accountable.
Thank you. We have a lot of topics to get to, and I promise we're going to get to everyone if we play within the rules. Okay, next topic. More than 1,000 people are still unaccounted for in Maui after the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century. Hawaii's governor and White House officials said that climate change...
Where's the 30,000 people?
...of human error.
And a tropical storm hit California for the first time in 84 years. The ocean hit 101 degrees off the coast of Florida. And in the last month, the heat wave in the Southwest broke records nearly 50 years old.
So Alexander Diaz from Young America's Foundation has a question for you.
Polls consistently show that young people's #1 issue is climate change.
Shouldn't
How will
be.
you, as both President of the United States and leader of the Republican Party, calm their fears that the Republican Party doesn't care about climate change?
Should be interesting.
So
We should not be overwhelmed by this.
Show of hands. Do you believe in human behavior is causing climate change? Raise your hand if you do.
Look, we're not school children. Let's have the debate. I mean, I'm happy to take it to start. Alexander?
What about the hands?
A bit aggressive there.
I think that's the way to do. So let me just yes. First of all, one of the reasons our country's decline is the corporate media treats Republicans versus Democrats. Biden was on the beach while those people were suffering. He was asked about it. He said no comment. Are you kidding me? As somebody that's handled disasters in Florida, you got to be activated. You've got to be there. You've got to be present. You've got to be helping people who are doing this. And here's the deal.
So is that a yes or is that a yes? Is that a hand raise?
You do not
I think it was a hand raise for him, and my hands are in my pockets.
No,
because
no,
the
I
climate
didn't
change agenda is
raise
a
a hand.
hoax. Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this.
Uh-oh.
The climate change agenda is a hoax.
Wow.
That's a huge statement there.
We have to declare independence for it. And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy. And so the reality is more people are dying of bad climate change policies
He's right.
than they are of actual climate change.
He is right about that. That is true.
Hold on. In the last
We've seen that same thing with COVID. More people died from bad COVID policy than actually the disease itself.
Like ChatGPT standing up here.
Oh, man.
And the last person in one of these debates, Brett, who stood in the middle of the stage and said, "What's a skinny guy with an odd last name doing up here?" was Barack Obama, and I'm afraid we're dealing with the same type of amateur.
Wow.
Oh, personal attack? Come on, Chris Christie.
Just like you did to Obama.
Same type of amateur.
And you'll help elect me just like you did to Obama, too. Give me that
The
bear
same
hug, brother.
type of amateur.
Wow.
Hold on.
Chris Christie has no idea how he just stepped into that.
Brett, what I would
Do you
like
sound
to
like
say is the fact
ChatGPT?
that I think this is exactly why Margaret Thatcher said, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman.
Oh, really? I mean, it's a good quote. Good quote, but
First of all, we do care about clean air, clean water. We want to see that taken care of, but there's a right way to do it. And the
Yes.
right way to do it is, first of all, yes, is climate change real? Yes, it is. But if you want to go and really change the environment, then we need to start telling China and India that they have to lower their emissions.
well, that's the first thing.
That's where our problem is. And these green subsidies that Biden has put in, all he's done is help.
America doesn't have a climate change problem. We are actually the solution in the world. China and India are the problem.
Are made in China. And so that's not helping the environment. You're putting money in China's pocket, and Biden did that. So first of all, I think we need to acknowledge the truth, which is these subsidies are not working. We also need to take on the international.
Chris Christie is trying to get some kind of attention. That's what the personal attacks are about. Chris Christie is trying to become relevant again.
Bought and paid for.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Are you bought and paid for?
Absolutely not. I mean, here's what the American people deserve is a debate about the issues that affect their lives. Going back and forth being childish is not helpful to the American people.
There you
to
go.
decide on the next leader of our country. Number one. Wait a second.
That's
Number
why
two,
Tim Scott's going to get VP.
as a kid who grew up in a single-parent household mired in poverty, I wondered, was the American dream real for kids who were devastated by poverty, devastated by the challenges of life? I came to the conclusion that America can do for anyone what she's done for me if we focus on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting America. If we want the environment to be better, and we all do, the best thing to do is to bring our jobs home from China.
This is the moderate voice that's going to get him the VP pick because he's black and he's got that moderate voice.
And a better environment. Let me tell you why I say that, Brett. America.
Do it quickly.
America has cut. I'm a Southern boy. I talk slow. So America.
Another one.
That was quick. America has cut our carbon footprint in half in the last 25 years. The places where they are continuing to increase: Africa, 950 million people; India, over 1 billion; China, over 1 billion. Why would we put ourselves at a disadvantage?
Yeah, but everyone knows this. It is China and India, and yes, all of the continent of Africa. They are the problems. Why do we see it being done in America? Why is it all on America's back? Because it is about manipulation, about being able to benefit the donors to the Democratic Party. That's why.
So here's my...
So far, and again, I apologize to David Pakman. I'm not trying to piggyback on him and what he has to say. I'm trying to get the coverage as best as I can because it seems Fox is not putting the coverage out there at this moment, and I apologize for that. I'm not trying to get anything that Pac-Man is saying. I'm just trying to get the visuals from him, the debate itself. But we've seen that they've taken on climate change. We knew they were going to talk about it. And of course, the answer is yes, we need more nuclear. Yes, China needs to be addressing this. Yes, India needs to be addressing this. That's where the problems are. And what are we seeing? We're seeing Chris Christie trying to get a headline so he can get some attention to his campaign. We see Vivek, who's feeding into that, because Vivek is also going after a headline. He's trying to make some personal attacks, and he's trying to get his headlines so he can get himself bumped up again. We did hear the most rational two people about climate change, Nikki Haley and Tim Scott. Why? They're adults. They're talking about their actual issue. How do we deal with the real issue? And they had the best answers about that, other than none of them, besides Vivek, mentioned the nuclear power issue. The fact is, we need more nuclear power. It's the best source of energy outside of oil and gas. So we use the oil and gas, we build up the nuclear, and then we get a better nation. That's just the reality. That's what we need to do. But we're not hearing that from anyone. We're hearing bits and pieces of the answers from several of the candidates. No one of them is putting it all together. It's not just that it's China and India, the continent of Africa, basically third world developing nations, each of them. Other than the militaries in China and in India, we're looking at third world nations. So other than that, we need an answer put all together, which is to be able to go and say, to go out there, and we have to be able to say that we need all of it. We need nuclear. We need to get China and India and the continent of Africa to have a reason to cut their carbon emissions, which isn't the biggest problem. CO2 isn't the biggest problem. There are other issues. It's methane that is actually the biggest problem that we have to deal with. But we're not hearing that in the debate. We're not hearing serious answers here. We're seeing people try to one-up each other to look better in the headlines that are going to come off of Twitter. And when we see this covered by CNN, MSNBC, they're looking for, give me that 30-second quote of me taking down one of the other candidates looking strong. That's not going to win the presidency. That's not going to get them to be vice president. They're not going to get there by insulting each other. America needs more than insults. We need answers. And yes, Trump will insult people, but he also has an answer. And that's the part they're missing. It's not about trying to make this some kind of reality show. It's about getting an answer. And if part of that answer is to try and bring your opponent back to reality, to give up the high-end political poly-speak, the political double talk, if it takes shaking them up by giving them a name and that shakes them up to get them to actually give a real answer, fantastic. But if it's just about trying to get their emotions riled up, then that's useless. And that's what we're hearing from Chris Christie. To an extent, that's what we're hearing from Vivek. It's not what we've heard from Nikki or Tim Scott. And again, that's why I think they're the leaders. And again, why I think that Vivek needs more experience. He needs to be able to push his message without having to devolve to a personal attack, because that doesn't work. Doug, no one cares about. Asa, no one cares about. The fact that Mike Pence, no one cares about. No one cares about their states that they were in charge of, which are small and really don't have an impact. I'm not impressed with what I am seeing so far, what I am hearing so far. And again, I don't mean to piggyback on Dave Pakman. I'm just trying to use the feed that he has to be able to let you see it. And so when it comes back, I'm going to jump back in to hear their commentary. I'm not trying to get David Pakman's commentary. It's my commentary I want to put out there. But you may hear David Pakman occasionally. I apologize. Oh, they're back. Let's go.
Husband was adopted, and I had trouble having both of my children, so I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said that, we need to stop demonizing this issue. This is talking about the fact that unelected justices didn't need to decide something this personal, because it's personal for every woman and man. Now it's been put in the hands of the people. That's great. When it comes to a federal ban, let's be honest with the American people and say it will take 60 Senate votes. It will take a majority of the House.
Yes.
So in order to do that, let's find consensus. Can't we all agree that we should ban late-term abortions?
Yes, we all
Can't
can.
we all agree that
We
we
all
should
should be.
encourage adoptions? Can't we all agree that doctors and nurses who don't believe in abortion shouldn't have to perform them? Can't we
Yes.
all agree that contraception should be available? And can't we all agree that we are not going to put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty if she gets an abortion? Let's treat this like, like a respectful...
But no one is saying that in America. No one. I don't know any Republican. I don't know any Democrat that's saying that.
You're not mentioned, Vice President Pence. Governor DeSantis, you signed a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. One of your biggest financial backers said that you need to, quote, shift to get moderates or you will lose. What do you say to him and others who say politically that is a tough thing to sell nationally?
Well, I would say we sold the biggest election landslide victory in the history of the Republican Party in the state of Florida in 2022. That's what I did. We can win.
Well, wait a minute. Let's focus on the real issue, which is about abortion. Let's go to abortion.
Culture of life. I was proud to sign the heartbeat bill. I remember one of the most impactful moments of my life was when I heard the heartbeat of my oldest daughter in my wife's womb and then saw the sonograms of all 3 of my kids. What the Democrats are trying to do on this issue is wrong, to allow abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. I know a lady in Florida named Penny. She survived.
Yes, long-term abortions, last minute, late-term abortion is evil. Most states agree with that, but then you have New York State where it's allowed, California where it's allowed. That's a problem.
We're not going to allow abortion all the way up till birth, and we will hold them accountable for their extremism.
But just to be clear, Governor, would you sign a 6-week ban federally?
Disgusting lies.
I'm going to stand on the side of life. Look, I understand Wisconsin is going to do it different
question.
than Texas. I understand Iowa and New Hampshire are going to do
Answer
different.
the question.
But I will support the cause of life as governor and as president.
It should not be a national issue. It should not be federal.
Hold on, Senator. Vice President Pence. You're shaking your head.
Well, look, I'm not new to this cause. After I gave my life to Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I opened up the book.
Okay, religion is not unquestioned.
Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you.
Dear God.
And see, I said,
No, religion isn't the point here.
blessings and curses, now choose life. And I knew from that moment on, the cause of life had to be my cause. And I've been a champion for life in the Congress, a champion for life as governor and as vice president. And to be honest with you, Nikki, you're my friend, but consensus is the opposite of leadership. When
No,
the
it's
Supreme
not.
Court returned this question to the American people, they didn't just send it to the states only. It's not a states only issue.
Yes, it
it's
is.
a moral issue. And I promise you, as President of the United States,
It's a moral issue for the states to decide, state by state. It is not a federal issue. The federal government has no place in your health care.
is when a baby is capable of feeling pain, an abortion cannot be allowed. A 15-week ban is an idea whose time has come. It's supported by 70% of the American people, but it's going to take unapologetic leadership that stands on.
I agree that every baby is a life. I am pro-life, but I am also aware of the politics, and we need to understand that the other side does not bend on this. The closest, we need to be able to make a consensus, and the federal government, until we have a national consensus, should not be part of this.
Conversation is farcical.
No Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president could ban all those state laws. Don't make women feel like they have to decide on this issue when you know we don't have 60 Senate votes in the House.
70% of the American people support legislation.
But they don't vote.
Abortion after a baby is capable of experiencing pain. It's just going to take leadership.
Hold on.
70% of the Senate does not. You have to be honest with the American people.
We have to have a 15-week limit.
Let's get Governor Bergman for one minute here. So
let's let him speak.
But the Supreme Court did overturn Roe v. Wade, and the result of that decision was that it went back to the states. So that's where it is right now. So as I understand it, you are not in favor of a federal ban. What do you say about the states? There's about 5 of them, including New Jersey, I think a few others, that allow abortion up until the time of birth, though. If you were president, would you be able to abide that?
Well, first of all, I'm a pro-life governor of a very pro-life state.
and this issue is, of course, very important, but I am on the record and I stand behind that we should not have a federal abortion ban. We should not. And the reason why we shouldn't is very simple. It's the 10th Amendment in the Constitution. In the Constitution, which the states created the federal government, not the other way around, it says that there were certain duties allowed to the federal government delegated to them by the states. The rest are left to the states, comma, or importantly, or to the people. We need to get back to freedom and liberty for the people in this country. It's
actually the right thing.
Okay,
we can't have Republicans.
I agree that the 10th Amendment is important here, but again, it's not a federal issue.
Next day, they turn around and go, no, the feds should do that because the feds are stepping into people's lives. They're stepping into people's businesses. Over and over, if we say that the Fed should be in on this one, where do we stop? I say that we follow the Constitution, and this is returned to the states. This is where it should be.
Governor Burgum,
That's what I agree with that. I agree with that completely.
You signed a 6-week ban. Governor Burgum, you signed a 6-week ban. So you're saying federally, it's all going to go to the states.
Yes, and what is going to work in New York will never work in North Dakota, and vice versa. That's
Governor
why 50
Asa
states.
Hutchinson,
That's
right
why
here.
50 states.
This is too important of an issue that I have to address. First of all, the Supreme Court gave it back to the elected representatives, whether it's the states or whether it's the United States Congress. So there is authority, and that's why President Biden is pushing for a Democrat proposal, which is, in essence, abortion on demand through the term.
Which I disagree with as well.
They have their extreme position at a national level. It's most likely going to be addressed in the states, but it's certainly fine for it to be addressed at the national level.
No, I don't agree with that.
Arkansas has the record of being the most pro-life state in the nation.
I don't care which state is pro-life, which one isn't. It's a state decision. The federal government should not be involved. The more you get the federal government involved in your private lives, the less you have a private life. It is a state issue, not a federal one.
We get this right, it's going to be a continued debate. Let's talk about it in terms of compassion, in terms of protecting the life, and also understanding how we have to enhance adoption services, how we have to enhance maternal care. Those things we've done in Arkansas and are important for our nation's future.
There are a lot of issues that are very important. Senator, I'll let you weigh in.
We cannot let states like California, New York, and Illinois have abortions on demand until the day of birth. That is immoral, it is unethical, it is wrong. We must have a president of the United States who will advocate and fight for, at the minimum, a 15-week limit. I'm 100% pro-life conservative. I have 100% pro-life record. I got to tell you, though, we must fight for life. Our Declaration of Independence says our Creator gave us inalienable rights that include life.
I agree.
That is an issue we must solve. We can't leave it to Illinois. We can't leave it to Minnesota. We can't leave it to Illinois. We must solve that.
No, but we must leave it to the states because it is a state issue. Again, we do not want the federal government involved. That's why the Constitution doesn't have them involved.
Are they for 39 weeks or are they for 40 weeks? Because that's what the media needs to be asking.
All right, another issue is America and the crime crisis, the homelessness crisis. American cities are in decline. People are moving out as homelessness, drugs, crime move in. There are problems accelerated. They did accelerate during the pandemic and are still rising, actually.
Murders in New York, Chicago, all up 30% between 2019 and 2022. Homelessness is up 11%, the largest jump in recorded history.
Bail reform.
Vice President Pence, a lot of this began in the COVID era. How much of what we're seeing happening around this country is a result of those COVID lockdowns, and is your administration in part to blame for how we got here?
No, it's because of George Floyd.
The Democrats have been talking about defunding the police for the last 5 years.
That's what it is.
And we ought to be funding law enforcement, particularly in our at unprecedented levels. Liar. I mean, it's extraordinary.
No, it's all about George Floyd. It was about the riots of George Floyd. That's the problem. Defunding the police and bail reform. That's the reason why crime and homelessness are up, and drugs.
to work out their fanciful agendas, to do bail reform and go easy. What we need is strong commitment to law enforcement. We need leadership in Washington, D.C. that'll marshal the resources of the states, marshal the resources of the American people. But let me also say it's about opportunity. I mean, a lot of people don't know that those Trump-Pence tax cuts that we got signed into law go away at the end of 2025 if we don't have a Republican president and a Republican House and a Republican Senate. When I'm president of the United States, we're actually going to cut taxes further.
I don't care about cutting taxes. The problem is crime. Crime isn't because of the taxes. The problem is because we defunded this city, in the cities, 22 major cities of America. We defunded the police. That led to higher crime. We have illegal immigrants coming into America. That has increased the amount of drugs in America, which led to homelessness, and we're seeing overdose deaths. That's the answer.
Add that to the big increase in school shootings around the country. Democrats blame this crisis on easy access to guns. They also blame Republicans for blocking gun control legislation. What would President Christie do?
You know, I'm proud of the fact, Brett, that I'm the only person, along with Governor Hutchinson, up on this stage who's actually running United States Attorney's Office. I ran the 5th largest office in America.
Don't care.
In a state where
no one
there
cares.
is significant urban crime. And the problem is not going to be solved by more money. The problem is that these prosecutors in these localities in the states are refusing to do their job and to arrest violent criminals.
Yes.
So what a President Christie would do is appoint an attorney general who would instruct each of the 93 U.S. attorneys that they are to take over the prosecution of violent crime in every one of those cities that are failing to do so. We have plenty of room in the federal prisons to lock up these violent criminals and clean up.
How about you just cut off the funding? If you have a sanctuary city, if you have a city that is defunding the police, if you have a city that is doing bail reform and returning the criminals back into the public, just cut the funding, the federal funding to that city. That's it. It's that simple.
For a gun permit. And then it's facing a 10-year mandatory minimum, which was mandated by legislation sponsored by his father. And then you have a Justice Department that walks away from the...
Forget about Merrick Garland. What's the answer to the problem? It's not Joe Biden. We know that already. The answer is stop defunding the street, stop the funding, stop the bail reform, cut off the funding to these sanctuary cities.
Is we have a crime wave in this country and we know how to fix it. The question is, do we actually have the spine to do it? More cops in the streets who are on the streets able to do their jobs without looking over their shoulder for getting sued. And we also have a mental health epidemic in this country.
Yes, that's true too.
Just over the same period that we have closed mental health institutions, we have seen a spike in violent crime. Do we have the spine to bring them back? I think we should. As president, I will. But it's not just drugging up people in those psychiatric institutions with Zoloft and Seroquel.
That's part of it.
It's a deeper issue.
Right.
I think faith-based approaches can play a role here, too.
Religion.
We're in the middle of a national identity crisis. And I say this as a member of my generation. The problem in our country right now, the reason we have that mental health epidemic, is that people are so hungry for purpose and meaning at a time when family, faith, patriotism, hard work have all disappeared. What we really need is a tonal reset from the top, saying that this is what it means to be an American. Yes, we will stand for the rule of law. Yes, we will close the southern border where criminals are coming in every day. And yes, we will back law enforcement because we remember who we really are. And that's also how we address that mental health epidemic in the next generation that is directly leading to violent crime across this country.
Governor DeSantis, really quickly. Governor DeSantis.
We don't have an identity crisis with that. We're not looking for a new national identity. The American people...
Yes, we are looking for a new national identity because the current identity is woke. We have that. We need to get back to that.
Differences you might have, some others like you may have on the stage, it's Morning in America speech. It is not Morning in America. We live in a dark moment, and we have to confront the fact that we're in an internal, sort of cold cultural civil
You
war.
are
And we have to
equating the
recognize
American
that
people with the failed government in Washington, D.C. We just need government as good as our people again.
So, let me just finish addressing that slogan because I don't know what that slogan means. We need to shut down the administrative state.
Okay, they got to get clear. The answer isn't more government, which is what Mike Pence just offered. The answer is fixing, enforcing the laws.
Well, the statewide, it's a 50-year low. And so here's the thing. these hollowed out cities, this is a symptom of America's decline. And one of the biggest reasons is because you have George Soros funding these radical left-wing district attorneys. They get into office and they say they're not going to prosecute.
Yes, that is part of the problem, but that's part of defunding the police.
One guy in this entire country that's ever done anything about that. Me. When we had 2 of these district attorneys in Florida elected with Soros funding who said they wouldn't do their job, I removed them from their posts. They are gone.
Yes, but the bigger problem isn't those prosecutors. The problem is Merrick Garland and the U.S. attorneys. That's the problem.
Of life, and they are victimizing innocent people in every corner of this country, and it will stop when I get into office.
Okay, one more here before the break, Governor Bergen.
Well, Brett and Martha, I just thought it was interesting. You asked your question about the problems we're having in big cities. Nobody ever asked the question of what about the crime wave in small towns? Because in a small town, neighbors help neighbors. People understand each other. If a farmer gets sick, everybody comes together and helps them get the crop off. There's accountability, there's transparency. One thing that I think this country could use is somebody in the White House that understands small town values, because that's our road back to get this country on track again.
I wish that were the answer, but you're not going to turn New York City into anywhere in North Dakota. That's just not going to happen. You're not going to see that in Chicago, Baltimore, St. Louis. You're not going to see that.
Look at the challenges in our inner city. There's 3 simple words that would be helpful. 1, enforce the law when it comes to crime.
Yes.
Secondly, let's deal with the challenge of fentanyl. And it's both about stopping the fentanyl coming from Mexico, but it's also about education of our young people, making sure that we...
People already know what happens when you get high, what happens with fentanyl. They already know what happens with crack. Education's not the problem.
As well. Whenever you look at the underlying challenge of America, though, no one likes to see an America with smash and grab in our inner cities. As President of the United States, that will stop. It starts at the top with the respect for our justice system that a former president who's under indictment has undermined.
Oh, God,
by attacking judges, by attacking prosecutors.
This isn't about Trump. This is about San Francisco allowing people to rob their stores as long as you don't take $1,000 worth of stuff. So they take $999 worth instead. This is about allowing fentanyl across our southern border. This is about defunding the police, leaving people defenseless, and taking away their guns and taking away bulletproof vests so that the criminals can run rampant. It's not about President Trump. He has nothing to do with it.
To talk about the coming trials of Donald Trump.
Wow.
So we almost heard nothing about the Second Amendment, which is one of the biggest issues that we should have been hearing about, that they should have been talking about. What about the Second Amendment? What about protecting ourselves? Red flag laws. We were promised that they were going to take care of us, that red flag laws would deal with the mental health issue. It didn't, just like I promised and told you that it wouldn't in 2018 when I presented the facts to New York State's legislature, both the Assembly and the Senate, on a 5,000-word report detailing all of the information from Connecticut all the way up to New York City at that time. I can tell you, you're not going to, red flag laws don't work. Having the government talk about reinstating mental health doesn't work. We need actual action. We need to have more mental health facilities that aren't just drugging people up. We need to protect our southern border to cut the flow of illegal drugs and criminals coming into America. We need to stop defunding the police and trying to reallocate, which is the same thing. No matter what you want to call it, having less police increases more crime. We want better police, fantastic. But having less police is not helping anyone. We know that for a fact. They're not dealing with that. And we need to be able to defend ourselves. When the government has failed, when New York State, when California, when Illinois, when Maryland have failed the people and taken away the police and taken away and allowed illegal aliens and drugs to come into their communities, and by the way, we're forgetting about the sex slaves. That's right, the slavery, the human trafficking is coming along with those drugs. And when we do not address that, well, the last thing should be that the American people can protect themselves. Women should be able to protect themselves with a firearm. But they want to bash Trump. Oh, it's Trump's fault. Guess what? Trump did not defund police in 22 cities around America. Trump did not open up the border and allow 6 million illegal aliens to come into America, bringing drugs, including fentanyl, and bringing slavery, including child slavery, into America. He didn't do that. That's not his fault. That happened on the local level because sanctuary cities and sanctuary states like California, San Francisco, New York City, Chicago, Baltimore, that because of what they did. So we need to address the actual problem. And the actual answer isn't just saying, well, guns are bad. We don't want to talk about the border and it's all about Trump. No. Republicans have failed as well. They push red flag laws. They've been pushing gun control just as much as we've seen from Democrats, and they need to turn that around. We need the federal government to do one thing. You want to protect the border? Do that. If Texas wants to do it and the federal government isn't, leave Texas alone. That's the answer. Cut the flow of illegal aliens. Enforce the law. We have 22,000 laws about guns in America at the local, state, and federal level. 22,000. Just enforce the existing laws. Don't allow people to have loopholes like Hunter Biden when they commit the crime. Actually enforce the law and punish them for the crime. That's what we need from the next president. That's the kind of leadership that we need. But we talked so briefly about this and the question of abortion. They ran into it and they ran away from it. We need to have more of a conversation on these things. The answer, to an extent, is compromise and reasonable compromise. I believe in pro-life. I believe that the heartbeat bills are the compromise. 15 weeks, there's a heartbeat. That's a human being. I believe there's life at conception, but at least we can compromise and say, okay, 15 weeks. But let's not let the left demonize us saying, oh, well, you can't do this at all. You can have murder of a baby up to the moment of conception. Did we not hear about, and they're not talking about what just happened in Atlanta 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago in Atlanta, we had a doctor who decided to crush a baby while it was alive, while it was being born, which did not follow, no law in the nation deals with that. We need to protect that. But we can't even protect a baby from a doctor who wants to crush their skull as they're being born. And if we can't do that, we don't have any right allowing the federal government to step in and to make a decision about abortion. We don't. This is something we need to settle, and if we understand that as people across the nation, then you can get there. That's how we get to a federal ban and on abortion and allow babies to be born, and we can take care of those kids, whether it's adoption or otherwise. That's the answer. We're not hearing complete answers from any of these candidates. They keep going for the 30-second soundbite. They're looking for the statement that's going to be repeated by CNN and MSNBC. They're looking for the soundbite that's going to get them all the donations and get them attention. And it's really pissing me off because they're not dealing with the answer. They haven't come up with solutions. They keep trying to push it down the road and not give a solid answer, more than not.
Governor Christie, you were kind of late to the game there, but you raised your hand?
No, I'm doing this. Look, I'm doing this.
And
not
I know
this.
you didn't.
Whoa. No.
What's the
look, here's the bottom line. Someone's got to stop normalizing this conduct. Okay? Now, whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States.
No, okay, that's wrong. What conduct? Be very explicit there, Christie.
And this is the great thing about this country. Booing is allowed, but it doesn't change the truth. It doesn't change the truth.
Boos and mean tweets are allowed. That's not a problem.
Let's just speak the truth, okay? President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century.
No. No.
Chris Christie,
No, he wasn't.
your claim that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible if your entire campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man. And if people at home want to see a bunch of people blindly bashing Donald Trump without an iota of vision for this country, they could just change the channel to MSNBC right now.
Wow. Yes,
but I'm not
that's
running
true.
for president
That's
of
true.
MSNBC. I am running for president of the United States. We're skating on thin ice, and we cannot set a precedent where the party in power uses police force to indict its political opponents. It is wrong.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. He is absolutely correct there. Absolutely correct.
You know, let me tell you
No, I'm sorry. 30 seconds, Governor
You
Christie.
make me laugh because
Personal attack time.
You sit here in an answer. You sit here in an answer.
Oh my God.
And this is why I said Christie's going to be the first one out.
You can't even speak.
You sit here in an answer.
Go ahead, Governor Christie.
Hold on, Governor
Wow.
Christie.
Hold on.
They're booting him up.
See, I got it right. This is why Christie is done. He is out of the race. He won't make it to September.
Talk about it. So let's just get through this section. Governor Christie.
You sit here talking about how you want to stand up for the rule of law.
Yes.
And law and order. And the fact is that it can't be selective. In your book, you had much different things to say about Donald Trump than you're saying here tonight.
That's not true.
Well, it is very true.
That is not
It's
true.
very true. I read it,
Because
and I
there's
know.
a difference
Look,
between bad behavior and illegal
by the way,
behavior, Chris, and you as a
by the way,
prosecutor should know better.
Yeah, you know what? I know a lot
There's
better.
a difference between bad behavior. And
I know a lot better than you do. You've never done it like you've never done anything to try to advance the interests of this government except to put yourself forward as a candidate tonight. And here's
Christie's doing the same exact thing. He puts himself forward.
this governor, and I am not going to bow to anyone when we have a president of the United States who disrespects the Constitution. He said,
Biden disrespected the Constitution.
Okay, hold on. Because these are politicized indictments, and we have to call out the truth.
Martha, it's important to say that the president said, Donald Trump said, it's okay to suspend the Constitution. Now, the oath you take is to preserve, protect, and defend, not suspend. I will always stand up for
Abraham Lincoln suspended the Constitution.
political pressure.
We have another question for you. We're going to get everyone in on this issue, but I have another question.
Okay, Christie has issues.
So, President Trump's former vice president is on this stage tonight. He has faced hecklers on the campaign trail over his actions on January the 6th.
Here we go.
On that day, the vice president moved forward with the certification of the election. So do you believe that Mike Pence did the right thing, Senator Scott? Do you believe he did the right thing?
Absolutely. He did the right thing. Number one.
No.
Number two.
Well, it's a tricky issue.
We should be asking ourselves a bigger question about the weaponization of the Department of Justice.
Yes.
When I'm president, the first thing I'll do is fire Merrick Garland.
Good.
Second thing I'll do,
That's
fire
expected, though.
Ray, because we need Lady Justice to wear a blindfold. Without that, no one has confidence in our justice system. 17% of Republicans have confidence in our Department of Justice. Here's why. We keep seeing not only the weaponization of the Department of Justice against political opponents, but also against parents who show up at school board meetings. They're called.
Well, yes, that's true. There's been 2,000 investigations into parents, yes.
Firing Christopher
But that's not-
Wray
but
to
that's not
shut
enough.
down the FBI. Actually have the courage to get it right.
Mr. Ramaswamy.
Let me finish my comments.
Yes.
Not only that, in addition to that, we see the SWAT team show up at pro-life activist homes with guns drawn because this DOJ uses their power, uses their authority, not just against political opponents, but against conservatives and conservative causes. It is time for a change in America, and I will bring that change to the greatest nation on God's green earth.
We have an important
But Governor
question still to
DeSantis, do you
answer.
believe that Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th?
So here's what we need to do.
We need to end the weaponization of these federal agencies.
Right,
And I will do that.
That's not the question.
I know, but here's the thing.
answer the
This
question?
election is not about January 6th of 2021. It's about January 20th of 2025 when the next president is going to take office. I know what the Democrats would like to do. They want to talk about all these other...
Well, this is a Democrat point. The answer to this is all about Democrats.
The decline of our country.
Right.
I learned in the military, I was assigned with U.S. Navy SEALs in Iraq, that you focus on the mission above all else. You can't get distracted. So Republicans, we've got to look forward, and we've got to make sure that we're bringing the message that can win in November 2020.
Yeah, but we still got to deal with January 6th as is.
What do you think, Vice President? Is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I think the American people deserve to know whether everyone on this stage agrees that I kept my oath to the Constitution that day. There's no more important...
Kinda. There's more details than just this.
Why are we... Mike did his duty. I got no beef with him. But here's the thing. Is this what we're going to be focusing on
I'm relieved.
going forward? The rehashing of this? I'll tell you,
Governor
the
DeSantis,
Democrats would love that. And they will win if we
Governor
let them get away
DeSantis,
with it. I'm not letting Biden hang out in the basement this time. We're going to run him ragged around this country, and we're going to hold him accountable.
These people are...
Okay, so yes, January 6th is not the biggest issue. We really don't need... We need to take care of the 1,500 people, 1,400 people who have been prosecuted on that for basically trespassing. But this is not the biggest issue facing America. It really isn't.
Trump was morally disqualified from being president again as a result of what happened on January 6th.
You cannot morally disqualify anyone from any elected position. That is not possible. You know how you get morally removed from an election? People don't vote for you. You don't get the votes.
Result of the insurrection. This is something that could disqualify him under our rules and under the Constitution.
They don't want to
and
hear
so,
facts.
obviously, I'm not going to support somebody who's been convicted of a serious felony,
He hasn't been convicted.
who is disqualified under our Constitution.
He has not been convicted of anything, and he's assuming that he will be, which is not clear. So that's not the answer.
No, we're going to...
Martha, can I answer the question?
Can I get in on that?
Okay, I'd like to answer.
You have already been in on it, Vice President Pence.
All right, I'd like to answer the question
Go
you
ahead.
asked and not give a pre-canned speech. Mike Pence stood for the Constitution, and he deserves not grudging credit. He deserves our thanks as Americans for putting his oath of office.
He should hug
and
him.
That's not exactly what he did. Again, they're giving a half answer about what happened with Mike Pence, what happened in the halls of Congress. It is legal to challenge an election. It is legal when there are irregularities to put a pause and to hold. That's part of the Constitution, which, we're seeing Chris Christie, Asa Hutchinson, they're ignoring that.
career. Mike Pence said no, and he deserves credit for it.
Okay. Governor Haley, we haven't heard from you on this. Do you agree?
By the way, Democrats did the same thing. Democrats did the same thing in 2000 and in under the was it 2016? They did the same thing.
Will also tell you is, look, I mean, when it comes to whether President Trump should serve or not, I trust the American people. Let them vote. Let them decide. But what they will tell you.
Okay, it just froze. My entire system froze here. Oh! I just got kicked out of YouTube. YouTube just kicked me. YouTube just kicked me. I don't know why.
Country, and every minute that these 8 candidates spend talking about the past instead about the future is time that is just
I gotta say, I just got kicked out. Why did I get kicked off of YouTube? I'm on a business internet line. There's no reason why I should have been kicked off. YouTube did not like what I've been saying. That's the only thing I can think of.
You did say
answer.
something.
Yeah.
We thought you were done, but you
No, I
please.
wasn't done.
Well, Mike, why don't you say this? Join me in making a commitment that on day one you would pardon Donald Trump. I'm the only candidate on the stage who had the courage to actually say.
I don't know that necessarily Donald Trump needs to be pardoned. Again, we're assuming he's going to be convicted, which is not clear, and the evidence doesn't necessarily point to that.
Justice system that was this corrupt.
Here's the difference between you and me.
Yeah, I'm not a professional politician. That's the difference. Who can answer a question?
I've actually given pardons when I was governor of the state of Indiana. It usually follows a finding of guilt and contrition by the individual that's been convicted. So, we'll look.
Not when Obama was giving out those pardons.
Request. But if I may, you know, it's not about looking back at January 2021.
You just were.
It's about January 20th, 2017.
What?
I put my left hand on Ronald Reagan's Bible. I raised my right hand. And I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And it ended with a prayer, so help me God. It was a promise that I made to the American people, but I also made it to my Heavenly Father.
Oh, boy.
Every day.
Look, let's get past this. We know that there was many issues. If he wanted to, there was legal standing and there was presidential, constitutional standing for Mike Pence to object to votes that were in question, that remain in question, that have been in the courts and will continue in the courts. That is a fact. So he's playing both ends of the stick here. He really is.
And people alone, but no one's above the law. And President Trump is entitled to the presumption of innocence that every American is entitled to, and we will make sure and extend that to him. But the American people deserve to know that the president asked me in his request that I reject or return votes unilaterally, power that no vice president in American history had ever exercised or taken.
That's not exactly what he asked for.
Him over the Constitution.
Right.
And I chose the Constitution.
That's not, according to all records, that's not what he asked you for. He asked you to challenge the debate, the votes, the electors that were in question at the time, as were members of Congress. They were making the challenge as well. So he was just asking you to live up to that challenge, which, again, Mike Pence is not giving off. And yes, Jan, you're right. Christie has forgotten many of these things.
There's more. Regardless of that, the specifics of that plan, is there anyone on stage who would not support the increase of more funding to Ukraine?
We would
not support it.
Europe needs to step up. I mean, I would have Europe step up and do their job.
Mr. Ramaswamy, but you're saying you would not too, Governor DeSantis?
I will have Europe pull their weight. Right now, they're not doing that,
would not support
and I think
more
we need
funding?
to do. And I think our support should be contingent on them doing it. And I would have support in China to be able to take China and do what we need to do with China.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine?
I would not, and I think that this is disastrous. That we are protecting.
Yeah, we're never going to get the money back.
Invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States of America.
Yeah, he's got a point.
Russia further
It's actually
He's got a very good point there. It's very clear that we're more interested in what's happening in Ukraine than we are in Texas.
A pilgrimage to Kyiv, to their Pope, Zelensky, without doing the same thing for people in Maui or the south side of Chicago or Kensington. I think that we have to put the interests of Americans first. Secure our own border instead of somebody else's. And the reality is, this is also how we project strength by making America strong at home.
All right, we heard the names. Governor Christie first.
All right, look. I did go to Ukraine, and I went to Ukraine because I wanted to see.
You're a governor. You know nothing about what's going on in the Ukraine. You have no power when you showed up there. Who cares why you went there?
Around this arena tonight, and imagine that every one of these seats was filled. And if every one of them was filled, there would still be 2,500 more children outside to make over 20,000 who have been abducted, stolen, ripped from their mothers and fathers, and brought back to Russia to be programmed to fight their own families. They have gouged out.
Ukraine has its own corruption as well, and telling us a sad story about what's happening there. It's not our war. Same thing in Vietnam, same thing in Korea. It's not our war.
And orphans. This is the
Why are we not in the country of Niger right now? Why are we not in Sudan right now, where we have those same children, which he doesn't care about? He only cares about Ukraine because that's politically expedient. We can point to countries around the world. How about Haiti? They're close by.
Hang on, hang on. Hit the brakes.
I have a question for Governor Haley. We'll come back.
Vice President Pence was mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, let me be clear. Anybody that thinks that we can't solve the problems here in the United States
We're not.
and be the leader of the free world has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth.
No, it's pretty clear.
We've done both. We've been the leader of the free world and the arsenal of democracy for years. The Reagan Doctrine years ago made it clear. We said, if you're willing to fight the communists on your soil,
That's 1980. It's 2023.
troops don't have to fight them. Vivek, if we do the giveaway that you want to give to Putin to give him his land, it's not going to be too long before he rolls across a NATO border, and frankly, our men and women of our armed forces are going to have to go and fight him. I want to let
They're going now.
and drive Putin and the Russians back out into Russia.
I want to just
So our
briefly
troops
address
aren't gonna have
Pence.
to make that
Vice
fight.
President Pence. I have a newsflash. The USSR does not exist anymore. It fell back in 1990.
Did I say
the real
USSR?
threat, you talked about the communists, and the real communists that we have to address
Do you
right
not
now
have any
is the
idea what Vladimir Putin's aims
you
are?
already spoke. Now I actually have something to say.
Vladimir Putin has been saying he wants to reestablish the old Soviet sphere
You've made
of
your point,
influence.
Vice President.
Now, if you think I'm sorry,
President
I
China
insulted him by calling him a communist. He is a dictator and a murderer.
And a
The
communist.
United States of America needs to stand against authoritarianism.
And a communist.
Mr. Ramaswamy, 30
Briefly
seconds.
respond. The real threat we face today is communist China. And
Yes.
we are driving Russia further into China's arms.
Yes.
The Russia-China military alliance is the single greatest threat we face. Nobody in either political party is talking about it. And I am the
I've been talking about it.
non-neocon on this stage who will keep us out of war.
Mr. Vice President, we can't hear. Mr. Vice
Is
President.
to give Russia
Mr. Vice
everything
President.
they've got.
Mr. Vice President.
Give them a promise that Ukraine will never be in NATO, and then somehow.
I don't care if they're in NATO. That's not our problem. Really, it isn't our problem. Why do we care? And if it's about children, what about the children in Haiti? What about the children in Mexico? What about the children in San Francisco? I mean, come on. There are bigger issues here.
So, Mr. Vice President, we appreciate your aggressiveness here.
This is a bonkers.
But quite honestly, they're losing control of this.
Reality is that today, Ukraine is not a priority for the United States of America. And I think that the same people who took us into the Iraq War, the same people who took us into the Vietnam War, you cannot end it. You cannot start another no-win war. And I do not want to get to the point where we're sending our military resources abroad when we could be better using them here at home to protect our
He
own
has a very
borders,
good point.
Protect the homeland.
All right.
That will be my top priority in foreign
I
policy.
think we gave you
protect
more than
this
the 30
homeland.
seconds in the rebut. So I do want to get to some other people because everybody, we respect everybody's time here.
Can anyone talk?
Governor Haley, you did not raise your hand, meaning that you would support more funding for the Ukraine war. You have said of Governor DeSantis that you didn't appreciate it when he initially called it a territorial dispute. Why?
First of all, the American president
It is
needs to have
territorial
moral
dispute.
clarity. They need to know the difference between right and wrong. They need to know the difference between good and evil. When you look at the situation with Russia and Ukraine, here you have a pro-American country that was invaded by a thug.
They aren't pro-American. They're pro-American money. There's a difference.
Less than 3.5% of our defense budget has been given to Ukraine. If you look at the percentages per GDP, 11 of the European countries have given more than the U.S.
No, they have not.
Important is go back to when China and Russia held hands, shook hands before the Olympics, and named themselves unlimited partners. A win for Russia is a win for China. We have to know that. Ukraine is the first line of defense for us. And
That's not exactly correct.
he wants to hand Ukraine to Russia. He wants to let China eat Taiwan. He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do
Who said that?
to friends. What you do instead is you have the backs of your friends. Ukraine is the front line of defense. Putin has said, if once Russia takes Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. That's a world war. We're trying to prevent war. Look at what Putin did today. He killed Prigozhin. When I was at the UN, the Russian ambassador suddenly died. This guy is a murderer, and you are choosing a murderer over a...
No, we're trying to avoid being involved in a regional conflict that has no win. No win for the American people at all.
You know, Nikki, I wish you well in your future career on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon.
You know, I'm not on
but
the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon, and you know,
Boeing came off of it, but you've been pushing this lie. You've been pushing this lie all week, Nikki.
You want to go and defund Israel? You want to
okay, let me address that. I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm going to
address each of those right now. This
is on fire.
Okay, so they're really just bickering now.
Let's say you have no foreign policy experience, and it shows.
She's right.
It shows.
She's right. He doesn't have any foreign policy, and that's the problem. I don't agree with him.
Our relationship with Israel will never be stronger than by the end of my first term. But it's not a client relationship. It is.
There's never been a better time to get away with a.
Stand on their own 2 feet.
Well, I got feedback somewhere.
To make sure Iran never is nuclear armed. But you know what I love about Israel? And I've been there probably in the last 10 years more than most people on this stage. You know what I love about them? I love their border policies. I love their tough on crime policies. I love that they have a national identity and an iron dome to protect their homeland. And so, yes, I want to learn from the friends that we're supporting. And what puzzles me is, I want to learn from those and apply those to protect our homeland, Nikki.
Israel
that is the
needs
answer.
America. America needs Israel.
Okay, Governor DeSantis, you were mentioned in the territorial dispute. Not only...
no, it's not a territorial dispute
President
either.
of the United States, your first obligation is to defend our country and its people. And that means you're sending all this money, but you're not doing what we need to do.
What about the 30,000 Americans abandoned in Afghanistan, Ukraine, and the Sudan? No one is mentioning it.
And so I am going to declare it a national emergency. I'm not going to send troops to Ukraine, but I am going to send them to our southern border. When these drug pushers are bringing fentanyl across the border, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to use force, and we're going to leave them stone cold dead.
We're actually going to move on to China.
Okay.
Governor Burgum. China has the biggest navy in the world, the biggest army in the world.
Yes.
Now they have warships off the coast of Alaska. They are threatening Taiwan. In coming years, China will have 1,500 nuclear warheads, it's believed. The U.S. just arrested 2 sailors accused of spying for China within our military.
Yeah.
So the question is, how would you deter China as a president, Burgum?
Well, this is the #1 issue we're facing, and of course we haven't been talking about it, and we act like that letting Russia win in the Ukraine is like a gimme as opposed to a gift to China. Russia has become China's gas station. But how would we do it? The Biden administration is a complete fail. China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day, more than any other country in the world. They do not even have all the food they need to feed everybody in that country, so they don't have energy security or food security. But the Biden administration sends Blinken, Yellen over there. They're over there. They don't even bring up energy because they're too busy trying to kill the U.S. energy here. And what we need to do is not meetings, not press releases, because something that would send a lot more than a press release is actually Harpoon missiles. We need anti-ship missiles on Taiwan. The way that you have a war never start, which is the goal, the way you have peace through strength, is that you actually have strength. You actually have deterrence. And what we have...
Well, that means we need a bigger Navy. We need more people in our military.
Fail. What is an example there of Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan? The fact
Yes.
that he green-lighted Putin moving into Ukraine.
Yes.
And then now they see weakness, and when they see weakness, they make a move.
Yes.
And we have to be strong, and we have to be strong both in Ukraine, and we can solve the southern border. Absolutely, we can
Yes.
do that. Because guess what? There's only 19,855 authorized people for the Border Patrol, but they're not all staff because the Biden administration doesn't enforce law enforcement. But Biden administration wanted to put 87,000 people in the IRS
Yes, he
as
did.
opposed to giving the money in this support we need to our own Border Patrol.
See, that's the problem. That's the problem. We keep getting partial answers from each of these candidates.
Fire the 87,000 IRS agents and
Yes.
hire or double the number of...
Remember, most of those 80...
So right now we have David Pacman who's saying something silly, but forgetting that.
Is our southern border. It has led to the death of 70,000 Americans because of fentanyl, plus 6 million illegal crossings since President Biden has taken office, and 200 people on our national security watch list have been caught at our border. How many have not been caught?
Yeah, but
at
we
our
can't
southern
be
border?
isolationists
If we just
either.
spend $10 billion.
Hey, by the way,
We can't be isolationists at the same time. We have to be able to project an international message. Though both are important, and Tim Scott is missing that we have to be strong internationally as we are strong here domestically. Both are important.
Of this government, and as the next president of the United States, I will make that border wall complete.
There are many more questions on.
But the border wall doesn't finish what happens in China.
Just to 70,000 from fentanyl. We've lost 200,000 people to overdoses since Biden took office.
Yes.
That's 300 people a day. We're taking
Yes.
mass casualties, and that's a statistic, but these are sons and daughters, nieces and nephews that we're losing.
That's true.
We've got North Dakota troops down there flying night helicopter missions from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop these transnational criminal organizations. They've got better funding on their side than we've got on our side.
Speaking of which, Governor Hutchinson, images from earlier this month, Governor Hutchinson,
with Mexico,
Vice President Pence,
policy.
images from earlier this month.
We secured the
Vice President Pence, it really doesn't help. I'm asking a question. Earlier this month, images showed suspected cartel members crossing into Texas with rifles. Do you consider this an invasion? Would you authorize lethal force along that border?
There would be lethal force used by the Border Patrol, law enforcement as needed to protect the border. Absolutely. When you look at the military has to be used for intelligence gathering purposes. This is not unusual. Whenever I was in the Bush administration, we went down there and met with President Vicente Fox of Mexico and asked his help in going after the cartels. And he looked at me and said, they're a problem to us as well. And so we joined together and we took down the Ariana Felix brothers leading the Tijuana cartel.
Okay, the cartels have completely changed between then and now. You're talking about 35 years ago. It's not the same world, and human trafficking is a bigger issue today than it ever was in the past. There's more slavery, there's more fentanyl. These are new problems, not the old problems, and we need different solutions.
And we have to use economic pressure that this administration is not using. The rule of law has to matter on both sides of it.
Okay.
This is critical. I've done it. We know what needs to be done. The military has to be limited in its use.
No.
After 9/11, we had the global war on terror, and guess what? We protected the border at the same time. You can do both.
Okay, let's go to Governor DeSantis. So, as president, would you support sending U.S. Special Forces over the border into Mexico to take out fentanyl labs, to take out drug cartel operations? Would you support that kind of American military use?
Yes, and I will do it on day one. Here's the thing.
I think most of the candidates would do
Cartels are
that.
killing tens of thousands of our fellow citizens. You want to talk about a country in decline? You have the cartels controlling a lot of part of your southern border. We have to reestablish the rule of law, and we have to defend our people. The President of the United States has got to use all available powers as Commander-in-Chief to protect our country and to protect the people. So when they're coming across, yes, we're going to use lethal force. Yes, we reserve the right to operate. How many more tens of thousands are we going to let to die? I am sick. I've met Angel Mom.
You know, I know what's going to happen. We're going to see NBC and CNN, they're going to quote this lethal use of force over at the border, and they're going to say, oh, look, the Republicans just want to kill brown people. I guarantee you that's what they're going to say about this.
Poison that they are bringing in. So as president, would I use force? Would I treat them as foreign terrorist organizations? You're darn right I would.
You know, Vice President Pence. Vice President Pence, Why would you be better at this issue than Governor DeSantis? Governor DeSantis on the campaign trail refers to your administration as not finishing the wall.
Right. Look, we secured the southern border of the United States of America and reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%.
Trump did that, not Pence.
He threw open the southern border of the United States, and the wave of humanity, the wave of fentanyl that's been eloquently described here is a wave of human tragedy across this country. But Martha, you began this evening talking about who is best prepared to be the next president of the United States.
No one on this stage.
And I have to tell you, with all humility, I was there when we negotiated through the government shutdown and got the funding available to build the wall.
That was Trump, not him.
Around the clock. I negotiated the...
No, that was Trump, not him.
Another horror.
Okay, so we're seeing that there's an issue again, technical issue with Fox News. The feed got cut. Hang on, it comes back.
I will engage Mexico the exact same way, and we will partner with the Mexican military, and we will hunt down and destroy the cartels that are claiming lives in the United States of America.
Okay, thank you. Another issue that is related to this is that almost 7 million migrants have crossed this border, our southern border, during the Biden administration. So, Governor Christie, what would you do about the 7 million who are here? How would you handle them? What would
Deport them.
Martha, the first thing we need to do is to stop any more from coming.
Deport them.
Need to do. Then the next thing we need to do with the folks that are here is to, again, as we've talked about all night tonight, we have to have law and order in this country. We have to enforce the law. And what that means is to make sure that people who come here illegally...
No, just say it. Say deport them and close the border. You can do both at the same time. Just be simple about it.
Who are waiting in line, following the law to try to come here and pursue the American dream. And those people are waiting and waiting and waiting because we haven't dealt with the problem of the folks who are here.
Legal migration is not the problem. Illegal migration, illegal aliens, deport them, close the border.
For having broken the law. And one last thing on this fentanyl issue. With China, we can't take our eye off of that ball. Right. Yes, it's important that we secure the border. Very important, as I just said. But China is sending these chemicals to these drug cartels for them to create the fentanyl that is killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens. The Chinese are engaging in an act of war against us, killing our citizens. We better make that priority one in our conversations with China and to try to straighten that relationship out, because if we don't,
you're right,
we're
Jen.
going to lose more and more of our
We're not seeing answers here. We're not getting
send
answers.
those people back?
Of course. You'd have to.
Okay, he finally answers it when she follows up. Deport them.
We're going to talk about the crisis in education.
Okay, so this has been, I'm actually rather disappointed in what we are seeing. The crowd, the panel, the candidates are unruly. They're talking over each other. There's way too many personal attacks for no reason. We're seeing personal attacks just to have a personal attack, to get attention, to get media focus, to get people emotionally riled up. They're looking for headlines in Twitter and CNN, but they're not actually addressing the issue. Again, if you're going to go and make that personal attack, you're going to shake up that person, get an answer, make an answer, do something definitive. Don't just try and get them riled up so you can get a couple of extra views on YouTube. That's not the answer. And they're all, to some degree, doing that on that stage. I am really not impressed with Chris Christie. I wasn't before this started, and I absolutely am not now. He has not been anywhere near what you would call presidential, nor is he forward-thinking. He's dodging even the simplest thing. What do you do with the illegal aliens? Deport them. Close the border and deport them. He couldn't say deport them. It's that simple. I don't understand why he had so much of a problem with that. Asa Hutchinson, I don't think has had a good showing. I don't think Doug Burgum is really impressive at all. Although Doug has mentioned a couple of nice things about the Constitution, that's good. He's aware of that. He's aware of the government overreach, but I don't feel that he has a strong answer for anything. He does know the Constitution should be abided by, but he doesn't have anything strong. I don't get a strong feeling from him about anything. I truly believe that we have seen the most adult conversation, the most respectful conversation, the most issue-driven conversation coming from Tim Scott and Nikki Haley. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not catching that. But as far as I can tell, we are getting the most answers, actually the most definitive answers, have come from Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, and in that order. And then, believe it or not, Mike Pence, and then Vivek. Vivek has been very emotional. He's been very hyper. He's been very engaging in terms of personal attacks, and he's going to get a lot of attention. He's going to make a lot of money after this debate, but he's showing his immaturity in terms of foreign policy, in terms of politics itself. He can't go to Congress and try and bring that attitude, that mindset, that energy, and those insults to Congress and expect Congress to pass the agenda of President Trump. It's not going to happen. At the same time, I don't find that Mike Pence taking credit for everything that President Trump was front and center on and being attacked for. I don't think that's very effective either. So, we've got a lot of people who are really pissing me off on some of these things. But none of them are giving us real answers. Nobody's really giving us solutions. They're giving us how they feel. They're talking to feelings. They're not talking to effectiveness. They're not talking to being efficient. And this is why President Trump is leading the entire pack. All of them put together don't equal where President Trump is. Why? He has solutions. Whether you like those solutions or don't like those solutions, at least it's a solution, and you can kind of understand or project how effective and efficient it might be. We're not hearing that from this crowd. We're not getting those answers from these guys. They're talking about how to feel good about the problems, but they're not telling us how to fix the problems. And that is my big issue. It's not working for me. I don't think this has not been good for the Republican Party. This debate has looked bad. Democrats are going to look better. They are going to look more cohesive, partially because they have shut down everyone else's voice. They've been actively cutting off the funding for Marianne Williamson, for RFK Jr. They tried to cancel RFK Jr. They tried to silence him and ban him. So the only reason why Democrats are looking better is they won't let anyone speak. But in terms of the Republicans, we're not looking good here because this is not unified, nor is it coherent. Most of all, it is not effective and efficient. We're not getting those answers. We're getting pieces of an effective answer, but we're not getting the answer.
We stood up. I took a lot of fire for that. I was pilloried by the media, but I stood for our kids. And as president, I'll stand for you and your kids as well. But we have to make sure that what our schools are doing is focusing on solid academics. In Florida, we eliminated critical race theory from our K through 12 schools.
Yes, that's good. We need to do that.
Ideology from our K through 12 schools. And we have elevated the importance of American civics in teaching our kids about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
We need more of that. Yes.
As president, I'm going to lead an effort to increase civic understanding and knowledge of our Constitution. We cannot be...
But that's not necessary for the president. We need that to happen at the state level and the local level, not the federal.
Mr. Ramaswamy, hold on, Senator Scott. You've said that the Department of Education, the FBI, the ATF, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the IRS, the Department of Commerce, many of these should not exist.
That's correct.
Many of them, not all of them.
So the education question,
yes.
How would you deal with the crisis?
So look, we have a crisis of achievement. Let's shut down the head of the snake, the Department of Education. Take that $80 billion, put it in the hands of parents across this country.
Yes.
This is the civil rights issue of our time. Allow any parent to choose where they send their kids to school. End the teachers' unions at the local level to allow public schools to compete. And then revive our national identity where every high school senior should have to pass the same civics test that, frankly, every immigrant, including my mother, had to pass
Yeah,
in order to become
naturalized
a
citizen.
citizen of this country.
I
And
can
the
agree
fact
with
of the
that.
matter is, look, there's a part of education policy that also rests with the family. I didn't grow up in money, but you know the word privilege gets used a lot? Well, you know what? I did have the ultimate privilege of 2 parents in the house with a focus on educational achievement. And I want every kid to enjoy that. So part of the problem is we also have a federal government that pays single women more not to have a man in the house than to have a man in the house,
He's correct.
contributing to an
That's true.
epidemic of fatherlessness. And I think that goes
That's the war on poverty. He's absolutely correct.
well, because we have to remember education starts with the family, and the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to mankind.
He's right. Studies have proven that he is correct. You need a nuclear family and your kids will be better off. That's true.
Biological boys playing in girls' sports is the women's issue of our time. You said that even though you signed a ban on this in North Dakota, that there hadn't been one instance where it was actually needed. Are you saying that you think that too much is made of this issue?
No, I'm saying in North Dakota, we made a priority of protecting women's sports, and we've done that in our state. But I would absolutely do that. But I do think when we start talking about education and we think that we're going to have a federal government one size fits all, we're just completely losing track of the fact
rid of
that
the
education differs by state. Some school districts are doing a fantastic job, some less so.
Get rid of
But
the Department
idea
of
that
Education.
every school district, state, and every teacher is somehow indoctrinating people is just false. You know, when I was building a company from scratch, you know, with small town kids, and we went, you know, grew up in a town of 300, but we built a global company in 132 countries with over 100,000 customers. We listened to those customers. We spent time with them. We talked to them. We did that. And as governor, well, education is one of the biggest part of a state budget. So as a governor, I shadow a student. I don't, the night before, I find out the students.
It's really simple. Just shut down the Department of Education and leave it to the states. States know better what they need locally than the federal government. Why is it so hard to say that?
Innovation. We're doing it the same way we did it 50 years ago with innovation, not regulation. I would get rid of the Department of Education. I would give block grants to schools, but I'd give them on merit based on who's doing the most innovative. I just got done holding the 7th annual Governor's Conference on Innovation Education. You should.
It's so simple. He said yes, to get rid of the Department of Education, give out grants based on merit. It's that simple. Stop. Full stop. It's really simple.
They're working in low-paying jobs, and they're fighting for those kids and their families.
Governor, you said that this is the women's issue of our time.
First, I'll tell you, as you know, as a parent, the one thing you want is for your child to have a better life than you did.
Yes.
And we can talk about all of these things, and there's a lot of crazy woke things happening in schools, but we've
Yes.
got to get these kids reading. If a child can't read by 3rd grade, they're 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So we need to make sure we bring in reading remediation all over this country. We need transparency in the classroom because parents should never have to wonder what's being said or taught to their children in the classroom.
Yeah, that was a wake-up call.
Parents need to be deciding which schools their kids go to because they know best. And let's put vocational classes back into the high schools. Let's
Yes,
teach our kids
finally.
to build things
Somebody.
again. When we do that,
We need carpenters.
innovation, that's when it'll get back. And yes, I will always say I'm going to fight for girls all day long because strong girls become strong women become strong leaders, and biological boys don't belong in the locker rooms of any of our girls.
Well, yes.
The lightning round, and the first question is going to go to you, Vice President. So this is a lightning
We
round.
needed more people to answer that question about Title IX.
President Biden will be 82 years old on Inauguration Day. Nearly 70% of Americans say that he is too old to serve.
Yes.
Should presidents have to pass
Suffering
a
dementia.
mental and physical test in order to serve Vice President Pence?
Mental if they're that old.
Well, it might be a good idea to have everybody in Washington, D.C. pass a mental and...
Good joke. Good joke.
30 seconds, no. The American people can make those judgments. But let me say, I'm running for president of the United States because we don't need a president who's too old. And we don't need a president who's too young. We need a president who's been there.
Just right.
We need a
Well, yeah, I agree with that.
This works. how the White House works, how states work.
We need presidents that have experience. That's true.
I was fighting against No Child Left Behind when Republicans were doubling the Department of Education. I'll also shut down the federal Department of Education. And when I was governor, we doubled the size of the largest school choice program in America, and we'll give school choice
That
to
wasn't
every
you, Mike
family
Pence.
in
That wasn't you.
America.
That was
So when I
President
was
Trump.
This is a lightning round, Mr. Ramaswamy. I think you were mentioned there. You're 38. You're the youngest on the stage. You've said, and you just said, you want a civics test or public service for those under 25 to be able to vote. So the question is, do you want a mental acuity test for presidents over 75?
I believe in the people of this country to tell the difference between somebody who's an automaton and somebody who's actually a thinking agent in the White House, which we don't have in there today. And I will tell you, I want to address Vice President Pence's comment. I think we do need somebody of a different generation to lead this nation forward. Look at the way I've run this campaign. Going to the south side of Chicago, to Kensington, in the middle of Philadelphia, where traditional Republican candidates don't go. We have an opportunity to build a multi-ethnic working class majority to deliver a landslide. And I think I'm the only candidate in this race, young or old, black or white, to bring all of those voters along to deliver a Reagan 1980 revolution. We're going to do it in 2024.
Same question you got.
Maybe in 2028.
In a presidential election until 2020.
I will answer that. I will answer that.
30 seconds.
30 second quick answer.
You guys need to get control of this debate.
Everybody's going to get a chance.
Listen, we're getting control of the debate. This is a lightning round, not rolling thunder. Governor
Good point.
Hutchinson, you have 30 seconds on the same question.
On education, first of all, look at Arkansas. We have to compete with China. I built computer science education. We led the nation in computer science education.
Arkansas is a poor state. I'm sorry. You haven't done anything in Arkansas.
This is how you compete with China. As President of the United States, I will make sure we go from 51% of our schools offering computer science to every school in rural areas and urban areas.
Computer science is not what America needs. We need carpenters. We need electricians. We need plumbers.
In terms of technology.
Thank you, sir. This is going to go to this is coming to you. We're trying to do a quick round of different topics here. So, Senator Scott, faith is on decline in this country. You talked about it a little bit before tonight. So, is there a role for a president of the United States in changing that? What would you do to change that?
Well, our nation was founded upon the Judeo-Christian values that has made this the greatest nation on God's green earth. I'm a big believer in Ephesians 3:20 that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or imagine. Our responsibility should be to model the behavior we want others to follow. On education, the only way we change education in this nation is to break the backs of the teachers' unions. They are standing in the doorhouse of our kids, locking them.
Nothing breaks the back of the unions, especially the teachers' union, than defunding the Department of Education. That will break them.
Support some mandatory military service for all Americans.
I think it should be voluntary. I'm somebody that volunteered to
Mandatory.
serve, inspired by September 11th, and I deployed to Iraq.
Different world. We need mandatory now, like most of NATO.
Ramadi, and it's something that I think has taught me, when you go in that type of environment, anything you have, your personal agenda, you check it at the door. You go there, and it's about focusing on the mission.
It's about discipline.
And guys come together, and they get it done. And that's how I would view being the president of the United States. It's not about me. It's not about all these other side issues. My sole focus will be on your future and reversing this country's.
I don't believe he believes that.
For something a little out of this world, and this is for you, Governor Christie, do you believe that the recent spike in UFO encounters...
Really? UFOs? Really?
Yeah, you do. Come on, man. But, okay, we've been hearing a lot of testimony in Congress, and people are taking this a lot more seriously, and we're hearing that, there are things going on that people aren't...
This is not part of the presidential debate. It really shouldn't be.
Governor Christie, would you level with the American people about what the government knows about these possible encounters?
Martha, and especially coming from a woman from New Jersey, I think it's horrible that just because I'm from New Jersey, you asked me about unidentified flying objects and Martians. We're different, but we're not that different. Of course, the job of the President of the United States is to level with the American people about everything.
No, not everything.
The job of the President of the United States is to stand for truth. The job
Mostly.
of the President of the United States is to be a role model for our children and our grandchildren.
No.
And so whether it was UFOs
That's not the job of the president.
or this
That's
problem
not.
of education, and Tim's right, by the way, and I started this in 2010 by going right after the teachers' unions in New Jersey and drove them down to an all-time low popularity rating because they were putting themselves before our kids.
The popularity rating didn't get rid of them, nor did it take away their power. Who cares if they're popular or not? That's not an answer, Chris Christie.
Hannity is live from the spin room right here in the Fiserv 4.
Okay, I am so disappointed, especially with the lightning round. Very disappointed. Obviously, we are seeing Vivek Ramaswamy has been really dominating this entire debate. Whether he's been asked or not, he has pushed himself into most of the conversations on the stage tonight. He has been a very vocal voice, but he hasn't been coherent. He hasn't been effective. He isn't pushing effective plans. He's pushing emotional plans. They are popular, but he doesn't have a concrete, here's the next step. He has a lot of feeling behind him, and I think that's great, but he doesn't have experience to back that up. And so that means it's going to be very difficult. And he would not be able to negotiate with Congress. Again, I'm looking at this from the position of VP, which I think that's what this debate is about. Who's going to be vice president? And Vivek, I definitely believe you will see him offered Department of Commerce, maybe Department of Labor, something along those lines, because he doesn't have the experience. He's got a lot of energy, but he doesn't have experience. And that is critical. And I have to give it to Pence. Yes, we're at a time in the world facing 3 regional wars where we need someone with international experience. And Nikki Haley said it as well. It's very true. We need someone who has the gravitas to be respected and feared and understand the nuances of having conversations in various nations. And I don't think, in listening to Vivek, he doesn't have that. He has young energy, but not wisdom. Not the wisdom that comes with age and time. We're seeing that, again, Tim Scott was given very less time. As we went through this, I believe they started cutting down the number of times that we heard from Tim Scott more and more. I think that was disappointing, and I think that was unfair of the moderators cutting him out. Part of that's because Vivek is in an argument with everyone on the stage. I think every single one of them on the stage are terrified of Vivek Ramaswamy and the fact that he has been growing in popularity and no one else is. Everyone else is going down in their popularity, and Vivek is taking all of the oxygen out of the room, and they know it. And so they've been going after him, looking for that home run quote on that personal attack, and it's just not been working for them. It just hasn't worked. I think Nikki Haley's done a somewhat decent job of showing herself as being level-headed and having somewhat of a plan and lifting herself up, but it hasn't been very clear. Jan says, all I learned tonight was that the Republicans can't pull together and fight for what is right for this country and can't answer one question honestly. Yeah, it's really sad that so many of these candidates, they've been asked a question, the answer is very simple, and they have buried it under a bunch of political jargon, a bunch of political gobbledygook and emotional baggage, instead of either to avoid answering the question or to bury the answer so that you didn't notice if they answered it or not. And going to the whole issue about education, we saw that happen several times from several of the candidates, where they just buried it in this mountain of other crap that they were talking about, which doesn't answer anything. Like Chris Christie talking about, I took down the teachers' union was less popular than ever before. That has nothing to do with their power. That has nothing to do with their ability to influence education in the state of New Jersey. He didn't answer anything. That's not important. Who cares? It sounds kind of impressive, but it's not. It doesn't mean anything. Once you think about it, you go, yeah, but that's meaningless. Who cares if they're popular or not? Are they effective? They were. Okay, then you didn't do anything. really sad that we're hearing that. So I'm kind of upset with this. And I agree with you, Jan. This has been disappointing, but we can see what the outcome's going to be. Vivek Ramaswamy is going to gain about 2 points in popularity across the nation. Younger people are going to gravitate to him. He's going to get more attention because of that. We're going to see Pence is going to go down. Christie is dead. Doug is dead. Asa Hutchinson is dead. And you're going to see Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, and Vivek, they're all going to move up a point or two. That's what we're going to see. We're going to see them gain some more money. And everyone else on the stage, they lost. I don't know. DeSantis, he's going to try and hold on, but I don't think he rallied himself. I didn't feel like he had a plan. I feel like he's pissed off. I think he's relying too much on other solutions or partial solutions to some of the answers we're seeking in this nation. And he's misrepresented some of the things that he has done. And, I mean, nowhere near like what Mike Pence is. According to Mike Pence, everything that happened during the Trump era was because of Mike Pence, which is not true. So that's really disreputable as well. Oh, they're back.
Governor Burgum.
I understand why America's hurting. Biden's inflation is choking us. I grew up in a small town. My dad died when I was a freshman in high school. My mom, widow of 3, went back to work. Every job I had growing up was one where I took a shower at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the day. Our cities are less safe because of the fentanyl pouring into this country. Our economy is being crushed by Biden's energy policies, which are raising the cost of every product you buy, not just the gasoline at the pump.
True.
One thing that I'll do as president, I'll secure the border. I'll get this economy sprinting, not crawling like it is right now.
I believe he wants to.
And I would say that other thing is for sure, when I'm on a horseback in the Badlands in North Dakota, it looks like the horizon is just limitless. And when you can
I don't
only see
feel he's
beyond
strong
that
enough.
horizon, you can see that this great country, our future is unlimited. But we've got to focus on innovation, not regulation.
He has a good
We've
heart.
got to cut the red tape. We got to drive ourselves forward. The way we win the Cold War with China is by growing our economy and through innovation. And as president, I will bring out the best of America. I will improve every American life.
Well, we hope you're back on your
Good
horse
heart,
soon,
good intention. Don't believe he can follow through. And I don't think he's strong
Our
enough.
nation is in trouble, and it's in trouble because of failed leadership.
Yes,
And the solution is not 4 more years of Joseph Biden.
that's true.
The solution is not 4 more years of Donald Trump.
That I disagree
The solution
with.
is new leadership that can bring bold ideas to America and to bring out the best of America.
Establishment will not do
Number one
that.
responsibility is to bring out the best of our people.
That is not
That's
true.
what Ronald Reagan did. And he did it with optimism and hope for our country,
No.
with consistent conservatism.
Yes,
That's
that part.
exactly what I bring. As president, I'll bring out the best of America
No, you
in
won't.
terms of individual responsibility, building our economy, in terms of securing our border, enforcing the rule of law.
I don't believe
I'll
you.
bring out the best of America in terms of our national character,
don't believe
our
you.
faith, and our hope for the future. Join in this fight. ASA2024.com.
No, I don't believe he's
Senator
genuine.
Scott.
Thank you. I was a disillusioned young man growing up in a single-parent household mired in poverty. I wondered if the American dream was real for a kid like me. I can stand before you today and say the dream is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. I had the good fortune of a mom who worked 16-hour days, making sure we have food on our tables. She taught me that if you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back.
He gets
You commit a
VP
violent crime,
because he's
you
black
go to jail.
and he has a positive
And if
message.
God made you a man, you play sports against men.
Wow,
I'm Tim Scott.
Good point.
I'm asking you for your vote, and if you're in Iowa, I'm asking you to caucus for me. You can go to votetimscott.com for more
He
information
gets
or
VP
to make a contribution.
because he's moderate and he's nice and he has the black vote.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Martha. Look, everybody on this stage wants to be the next president of the United States.
Of course.
And the only way that's going to happen is if we beat Joe Biden. I'm the only one on this stage who's ever beaten a Democratic incumbent in an election. I did it in a deep blue state, being outspent 3-1. Beating
That
the
was a
Democratic
big-
incumbent is not easy. The last Democratic incumbent president who was defeated was Jimmy Carter. And he was defeated by a conservative governor from a blue state who knew how to get results, who stood for the truth.
You are not Reagan.
Who cared about
You are
accountability.
not Reagan, Chris Christie.
And stood strong and hard against waste.
You haven't been relevant
Those are
since
the very things that
2016.
I did in my 8 years as governor of New Jersey.
No.
And it's exactly what I'll do as president of the United
No
States.
way.
Believe me, the Democrats
We don't.
want some other nominee who's never beaten the Democratic incumbent. I'm the one who can win this race.
No, you
And
can't.
if you give me the chance, I will restore our country by winning it.
Absolutely not Chris Christie. Absolutely not Chris Christie.
Several weeks ago, I dropped my husband, Michael, a combat veteran from Afghanistan, off at 4 a.m. for another year-long deployment. I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they had never been, all in the name of protecting America. If they are willing to protect us from there, we should be willing to fight for America here. I will beat Joe Biden, and he knows that. I will strengthen our economy, and we'll bring this inflation down. We will put transparency in the classroom. We will secure our borders. We will have the backs of our law enforcement, and we will make sure we have a strong national security. And once again, we will make sure we have an America that is strong and proud. We have a country to save.
I don't-
Join us. Go to NikkiHaley.com, and let's get it done.
She's good. Not as good as Tim Scott, but she does bring the woman vote. She's my second choice as VP.
Thank you, Brad and Martha, for this evening. It's an honor to be here. Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad.
Yes.
The disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan,
Yes.
the war on energy, runaway spending that launched the worst inflation in 40 years, a crisis at our southern border, an assault on our values and liberties. And the American people have had enough.
Well, too bad we didn't debate that.
We can bring it back. But different times called for different leadership. The Republican Party owes the American people a choice. Proven leadership at the national level
Mike
that knows
Pence,
how to
you're
move a
not proven.
conservative agenda forward. We proved in the Trump-Pence years you can turn this country around faster than you can imagine. And I have faith we will again.
That's not because of you,
I have faith in
Mike
the American
Pence.
people. The good, decent, hardworking, faith-filled, idealistic people of this country. And I have faith that God is not done with America yet.
I agree
And
with
if we
you.
will renew our faith in one another and renew our faith in Him who has ever guided this
But
nation
Mike Pence
since
is
we
not the
arrived
one.
on these wilderness shores.
He's right,
I know
but
the
that's
best
not-
days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come.
He's right, but Pence is not the one to do
I was
it.
born in 1985, and I grew up into a generation where we were taught to celebrate our diversity and
Yeah.
our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways we are really just the same as Americans, bound by a common set of ideals that set this nation into motion in 1776. And
Yeah.
this is our moment to revive those common ideals. God is real. There are 2 genders. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism.
Yeah.
An open border is not a border.
Yeah.
Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to man. Capitalism lifts us up from poverty. There are 3 branches of government, not 4. And the U.S. Constitution, it is the strongest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what will win us the revolution of 2024. Thanks for letting me introduce
That closing statement is why Vivek is going to get the most of a boost after this debate, but his content doesn't fill up that speech.
Governor, this is our time for choosing. We will send Joe Biden back to his basement and we will reverse the decline of this country.
Yes.
I'm a blue collar kid. I work minimum wage jobs to be able to make ends meet. I understand the importance of the American dream and I know how that's slipped away from so many millions of Americans. We'll restore it. I'm a veteran who served in Iraq. I know what it means to put service above self. I'm also a dad and a husband to 6'5" and 3-year-old. I understand the importance of protecting parents' rights and the well-being of our children. In Florida, we showed it could be done. I made promises and I delivered on all of those promises. 2024 is make or break. We're not getting a mulligan, no excuses. I will get the job done, and as your president, I will not let you
And
down.
I don't
God
believe,
bless you all.
I do not believe the international audiences, leaders in the world are fearful of him.
And thank you to Milwaukee.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you on the campaign trail, from debates to primaries to the general election and the conventions before that. Thanks for joining us. Sean Hannity from the Spin Rooms.
All right.
All right, so let me say that, first of all, we were watching the feed in part that was on David Pakman's channel, but we were just focused on the feed itself to be able to get to Fox News. So I did not try and take anything away from him and his feed. Just wanted to hear what they had to say. And as in listening to the candidates over and over again, what did we see? Some of the things that we expected to see. Some of the things that we said, which we knew were going to happen. In fact, let me see if I can bring this up. What did I say? Let's see. Here it is. So, let's take a look. Before this... Oh, wait a minute. Let me fix this for you guys so you can see this a little bit better. Hang on. So... what did we say before the debate started? We said that what were likely topics? Inflation. Barely touched that. We heard people talking about how the economy is bad, but they didn't really talk about inflation, and really they didn't talk about the solutions for the economy. Bidenomics is destroying America. They alluded to it, but no one really focused on that. And the biggest part of the problem is spending. We're spending too much money, and that makes every dollar that we spend in the federal government less money that's in your pocket. It makes things more expensive. And that's on top of the global food shortage and the fact that we are not energy independent, competing with our allies around the world for the same resources, which is driving the cost up and hurting the poor. Didn't really address that. We need more of that. We heard a little bit about the Maui fires, which we knew we were going to hear about. But they really didn't get into that enough, about the fact that obviously the federal government under the Biden-Harris administration, and we've seen this in the past, you can say that about G.W. Bush when it came to Hurricane Katrina. We can say that about what happened in Puerto Rico when it was under the Obama-Biden administration. We've seen several presidents that have failed in being able to address these issues. And why do we see these wildfires, like in California, like in Maui? Because of the eco-fanatics and their stranglehold on certain states, on these progressive states, to not do what is necessary to take care of the states, to take care of these forests. And so we're going to see this happen again, year after year after year, because the policies are bad. And we're not building our infrastructure. To build our infrastructure, we need better education, and we need to focus on carpenters, on plumbers, on electricians, on machinists. We need to stop trying to get everyone to be a computer programmer and to focus on the needs within our regions, which means get rid of the Department of Education and focus on local needs, on infrastructure needs, which will build our nation. Stop being a service economy and get back to being a manufacturing economy, which nobody on the stage really said, but I think is important. Absolutely nobody on the stage mentioned anything about East Palestine, Ohio, which I think was really important and goes right along with the Maui fires. I would have thought at least one of the candidates would have brought up the fact that we have seen that the Biden-Harris administration has failed. It's the same thing with the Maui fires. They don't know how to address problems. In fact, they don't know how to deal with more than one issue at a time. And the only issue that they can talk about, the only one that they have any kind of solution for, is Ukraine. That takes up all the air in the room, sucks out all the oxygen. They have no time and no energy and no foresight on any other problem affecting America. That's why they can't fix the border. That's why they can't deal with inflation. It's why we got fentanyl deaths at all-time highs. It's why we're seeing human trafficking, otherwise known as slavery, at all-time highs. because the Biden-Harris administration can only deal with one thing at a time, and everything is focused on Ukraine, and thus every other problem is going rampant in America. Thus, we saw what happened in East Palestine, Ohio, which is the same thing as what we're seeing in Maui right now. So I would have expected someone on the stage to say what I just said. I'm surprised that they didn't. Hey, one of their speechwriters should get in touch with me. We didn't hear anything about the secret documents. Anything about, they talked about Trump has problems, legal problems, and no one is above the law. Fantastic. But how about we deal with the people who've broken the law, which would be Joe Biden and potentially President Trump? There's your issue. We know that Joe Biden has had secret documents for 40 years. We know that Hillary Clinton destroyed secret documents illegally that were under subpoena. But they're not in trouble. Okay, we need to level the playing field. And that was the big thing. We heard them say, well, Trump he's got to be persecuted because he's a bad guy. No, we need to level the playing field before we start saying anyone is a good guy or a bad guy, because we know that people have broken the law that are in our government right now. We know that there are protected people in our government as we speak. We can see it because we've seen the evidence as it has been reported internationally as well as in the United States. And we really didn't have anyone step up and say, well, the first thing is we need to level the playing field. I know a couple of people said they want to fire Merrick Garland. That's a given. The second, that he is a Democrat, okay? Merrick Garland is appointed at the pleasure of the president. He was appointed by a Democratic president. It is hand in hand expected. There is zero expectation that if a Republican wins, that Merrick Garland is going to keep that position. In fact, he would probably resign on the day of the election because he's not going to serve under a Republican. We know that. That's a given. So you're not really saying anything saying, I'm going to fire Merrick Garland. He's probably going to resign. You don't get the choice. No one expects him to be there. That's a useless statement. I think that was being said by, I think Asa Hutchinson said that, Mike Pence said that, a couple of other people said it. It's an empty statement. It's useless. But no one wanted to deal with evening the playing field and enforcing the law evenly within the highest levels of the federal government so that people will have their trust back into the government. We really need to focus on that. We didn't get that. What else did we see in this? We heard some conversation about January 6th, like I expected that they were going to. But again, not the root cause. First of all, we had 300,000 Americans there. We know that there have been over 1,000 people who have been arrested. We know that the FBI has promised that they're going to arrest another 1,000 people for trespassing, not for trying to overthrow the government, not for destruction of property, not for assault on police officers. They're going to arrest 1,000 more people for trespassing, when we know that at least half the people that were in Congress that day were let in by the police because we have video of that. And we know that the January 6th Commission destroyed a lot of the evidence that was supposed to be preserved so that we could then look at it in the future. So again, this goes back to it's not a level playing field, and the media isn't being honest about what we're seeing there. And these candidates, the candidates who talked the most about January 6th were the ones who were saying, you know what, you're all bad guys because January 6th, without going into or even addressing all of the levels, the mountain of inaccuracies that are also surrounding this, and the serious questions that face our government and how we are addressing this incident in our government's history. It's a problem. I find it to be pandering. We heard a little bit about China and Taiwan. A lot of people said that they need to stand up, that the United States needs to stand up to China. And we did hear from Vivek specifically and very vociferously that China is the big threat, that China is working with Russia, and the combination of those two are the big threat for the future. A lot of people were saying, no, and we heard Nikki Haley, I think it was Tim Scott, a couple of the others were saying that no, the threat is Russia, and Ukraine is critical to that. I don't agree with that. A lot of people around the world don't agree with that. But there are things that we can do. We are now becoming more and more entrenched, and it is just a matter of time before NATO sends in troops into the Ukraine, probably to go along with the F-16s that we just gave them, that we promised we would never do, along with the cluster bombs that we gave them, that we promised we would never do. We're doing a lot of things that we promised we would never do. And now, because we keep doing this, we've gotten into, and Vivek was correct, it's just like Vietnam, it's just like what we saw in Korea, it's just like what happened in Afghanistan. We're falling into this trap of another 2-decade-long war, and we're going to be stuck there, and that's a problem. And we're going to see NATO troops go in, and that means 80% of the NATO troops are going to be U.S. troops, and we're going to have Americans fighting in Ukraine. They're just going to call them NATO troops instead of Americans, but it's going to be the same thing. This is a problem. And the only one who was vociferously, really seriously against that was, of course, Vivek. But again, he's talking as a populist. He didn't have a counter of an answer of what to do along that way. Yes, we can't just forever give them money and weapons. But what are we going to do? Well, we have to work with Poland. We have to work with NATO and Germany in particular, Poland and Germany, in protecting them, in building up their defenses, because they can't build their defenses if they're busy sending everything they have that would defend them into the Ukraine, which they have done. They've given all their ammo to the Ukraine. They've given a bunch of their tanks, most of their tanks, to the Ukraine. Now we're giving them a bunch of the planes. What's left to defend the rest of NATO? If Ukraine fails, and it very well may, because it's only the Ukraine against all of what we know of as Russia, they may lose. They don't have enough people and weapons and resources. So if we ever stop sending as many bullets, which we're running out of, to the Ukraine, they may lose. And then what's to stop Russia from going through Poland? What's to stop them from going through Moldova? What's going to stop them from going through Germany? Because they don't have anything left. No one's thought about that. That's an important part of this. And the president should be thinking ahead about that. So it's not just, oh, we cut off Ukraine. We have to also back up NATO, which no one mentioned. And I think that's very important. Again, that goes to some of the lack of knowledge amongst many of these candidates. And so that's the Ukraine war. Many of these candidates just don't have international experience. That would be Dunham. He didn't have it. We didn't see it from Asa Hutchinson. We're not seeing that from Chris Christie. We're not seeing that from Ron DeSantis. And even to an extent, not from Tim Scott. The only one who really has international experience on that level is Nikki Haley, which gives her a boost up. Then comes the abortion issue, and really, it's tricky. Yes, pro-life, absolutely. That's not the reality of the world. That's not the reality of America. That's not the reality of American politics. Whether you love it or hate it, that's just a fact. Now, I think we all can say we can put out a law in each and every state saying late-term abortions are something that we all disagree with. Other than California and New York State, I think, in Chicago itself. But everywhere else in America, I think you can get a law that would pass individually in each and every state that says, no, late-term abortions at the moment of birth, that's evil, that's wrong. I think we can get that. We don't need the federal government for it. I think we can get most states to agree that 15 weeks or 16 weeks for the heartbeat bill is reasonable. That is a sign of life, and with that sign of life means human rights, and we must protect the unborn. I think we can get that through most of the nation, but we're not going to get to California. We're not going to get New York. We're not going to get the city of Chicago, probably the city of Philadelphia. We're not going to get these bluer than blue strongholds that are too big, and no one's dealing with that reality. So you may, Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, you can be pro-life. I am too. But you have to be cognizant of the fact that politically, there's a limit on what we can do. And I think Nikki Haley did address that and say, yeah, we can get it through the House. We'll never get it through the Senate. We would need a supermajority of Republicans in the Senate to get that passed. And there's no guarantee of that. And the second that we do that and we make pass that law, I guarantee you the next time Democrats are in, the first thing they're going to do is repeal it. It's not the way to win that battle. That needs to be a conversation with each and every state, with the people of that state, and dealing with the issues and what are the protections, like Georgia, which I mentioned during the debate. We have situations like what happened in Georgia, where a baby, as it was being born, was crushed to death by the doctor. This happened in just outside of Atlanta 3 weeks ago. That's a fact. Black doctor, black mother, black baby, crushed to death. And there's no crime. We need to be able to address that. And we need to address that on a state-by-state level, because states didn't think that anyone would be that evil. And apparently, there are people that evil. And we need to deal with that. That's not for the federal government. That's for the local government. I truly believe that. I'm going to get to everyone's comments there because I was just doing the recap here. So those are the things that we thought they were going to say. And that's, well, yes, Jan, you're right. I left out the fact that, no, the baby was crushed and beheaded. So let me be clear about that. Crushed and beheaded. It was gruesome. It's evil what happened to that child. And I covered it. We covered it in videos on that, and we talked about it on Sunday live stream as well. It's evil. And we need to be able to protect our kids about that. But that's something we need to have as a conversation on a state-by-state basis. The federal government doesn't need to be in there, because when the federal government is involved, we see mistakes made. Hell, there are mistakes being made, as I pointed out, in Georgia, where that doctor that beheaded a child, that crushed that child, they're giving birth to babies right now. There is no crime. They will never be charged with the crime of murder. If the states can't get it right, you think the federal government's going to get it right? The people who write 2,000-page long laws that they don't read and they don't know what's in them. Are you kidding me? No, we need that to be a state issue. So, Agent Black has joined us. Let me get back to here. So, Agent Black did join us as we were going along. And I know I was covering a lot of stuff, so I didn't see all the comments here. Jan's been commenting a bit. Jan mentions that when we were talking about the documentation, well, Mike Pence had them too, so he's also a criminal, just the same as Joe Biden, just the same as Barack Obama, just the same as Donald Trump. So really, that's an issue there. Jan mentions that Fox News just zipped past the whole thing about destruction of any of the documentation for the J6. They really didn't talk about the J6 committee. That could have been a debate all its own. They asked 2 questions and jumped off. That was unfair to the American people. We needed those candidates to address this. It's important because it has to do with how we're going to deal with every election going forward and our confidence in elections. And they didn't do it justice. Agent Black, who's in the UK, 7 hours ahead, joined us. And Agent Black says, I watched the Trump interview with Tucker, not seen the debate. Anything interesting or same old? And really, Agent Black, I was disappointed in the debate, truly. The debate was really upsetting. It was really inefficient, ineffective. We got partial answers, partially decent answers from several of the candidates, but no one candidate on any one issue had a simple, effective, and efficient answer. Not one of them. They all had a part of an answer. They all had part of a solution, but none of them had the complete answer. And that was disappointing, because the only person who's been able to convey clear answers with clear solutions, whether you like them or not, has been Trump. And this is why he's leading all of them combined. All 8 people on the stage are losing to President Trump combined. And there's a reason for it. There's a very good reason for it. Because none of them can, they're either not, I don't trust some of them, like Asa Hutchinson. I don't trust him. Chris Christie, I don't trust him. He just does not exude confidence and trust. We have a bunch of people who don't have the experience, like Burnham and Vivek Ramaswamy. They just don't seem to have enough experience, especially international experience, for me to feel like they actually could achieve anything that they're talking about. And a lot of them just don't have, Pence is saying everything was because of Pence, which is a lie. And he's overplaying his hand, trying to make himself seem like he was so important when he really wasn't. We can go back to the history. We can look at all the videos. We can look at the headlines during the time. And the person who was at the front of almost every one of the issues that Mike Pence is now taking credit for was President Trump. He was the one who was dealing with the reporters. He was the one who was making the plea to the American people. He was the one who was pushing the issues, not Mike Pence. Really wasn't. So there's that. So Agent Black, yeah, I was disappointed. And I know a lot of people didn't get notification because in the middle, did everyone notice this? In the middle of the debate, it wasn't that we were getting our feed, and it wasn't that the source of the feed, Fox had at least 2 times where the Fox feed went down. Okay, that's one thing. That's a problem. But it wasn't the Fox feed that was the issue. YouTube kicked us off air. They shut us down. They kicked us out. And I think and that tells you how afraid YouTube and social media are of Republicans right now. Not just Trump. Any Republican. They were terrified. YouTube shut down the entire conversation. They kicked us off of YouTube, not my stream, but being able to watch. They cut people out of being able to watch the debate. And it wasn't like Fox didn't stop showing it. As you go back to about the middle of the debate, and you'll see YouTube kicked us off of being able to watch the feed. They didn't cut the live stream. They cut the feed. They didn't want people to see what these candidates were saying. And that's censorship. That's incredible censorship. And they're going to say, oh, but it was some kind of technical error. I had no problem. My stream went straight. There was no buffering. There was no delay. Once we got the stream going, as soon as I turned on the stream, I've been streaming no problems. No. This was something that YouTube did to deny me and the audience the ability to see this program. They were trying to make it as difficult for people to see as possible. Now you add to that the fact that Fox News was making it as difficult as possible for people to see this feed, rather than making this publicly available, which it should be, because we're talking about a presidential election. We're talking about people being able to vote. So this should be public, and it should be available to everyone without having to jump through hoops, without having to try and get a subscription to Fox News. I'm sorry, that's not necessary. This is public news. This is public information. It should be available for everyone easily. You should be able to, just like when we used to have the debates on ABC, on the main TV channels, the same thing should be the case with cable. When we have a debate, it should be open to the entire public. So Fox News takes a hit on that. So they failed too. They didn't make this available to as many people as possible. Because they were making it difficult for the public to see this, we saw that the online tech companies took the opportunity to make it even more difficult, kicking people off discouraging them from hearing any of the answers. And then there's just the quality of the debate. Brett Baer had some of the better questions than McCallum, but I didn't think the questions were up to caliber. I think they let far too much of the bickering between the different candidates on the stage, just way too much of that. Brett Baer did not have enough control. He could have had more control, because when he asserted himself, whether it was to talk to the audience and ask them to stop booing Chris Christie, or whether it was because he was talking to Vivek and Mike Pence and telling them to stop bickering between the two of them, whichever way, when Brett Baer stepped up, we saw everything calm down. But then they would let it amp back up again. So Fox News really didn't do a good job with this debate. They didn't control it well. Their questions were too vacuous, and they didn't ask enough people the same question. They kept changing the question for the next person. No, how about we just ask everyone on the stage, are you going to defund the Department of Education? Everyone's talking about it. Okay, everyone gets to answer that question. Don't keep changing. And now it's about the unions, or it's about the funding of other departments. No, just deal with the one question. Deal with that. Ask everyone, get the answer. Stop changing the question after two people. Two people answer the same question, third person's answering a different question. Why? They're all running from the same office. If the question's important to ask two people, ask all of them. Why was it? And here's the thing. Why was Fox News changing the question as they were asking it down the line? Why would only two people get the same question at any given time? Because they were tailoring the questions to the candidate. So the question that Tim Scott was getting, you notice that Tim Scott got a lot more of the religious questions, and he's more of a religious candidate that's involved in a lot of his answers. Well, that's on purpose. Fox News, they've been paying attention to his campaign. They listen to his speeches. They see what he has written. They tailored the question to him for that reason. They tailored some of the questions for Mike Pence in the manner in which they put it there, talking about Mike Pence is against Donald Trump. And they tailored their questions to him in that frame of mind. Chris Christie, the same thing. Vivek Ramaswamy, with more emotional questions, more questions dealing with trying to overturn the establishment. That's a setup. That's not fair. That is manipulating the audience. Yeah, it gives you a lot of red meat for the people who like all those various candidates, but it's not doing justice of getting the answer to the question that American people wanted. And we didn't see enough follow-up from any of the moderators in terms of give us the actual answer. What is your answer? So often we did not see people answer, or they buried the answer in the middle of a bunch of political jargon that had nothing to do with the question itself. And so I wish they would have said, so restate yourself. Let's make sure, clarify this, because you just buried it in the middle of a bunch of garbled gobbledygook. Do you or do you not support, say, the abortion or the Department of Education? Some of the other questions. I mean, we just needed clarity there. So let me go back to some of the comments here. And to answer one of the other questions that you made, Agent Black, yeah, I know that, again, no notifications went out. It should have. It should have gone out on YouTube, not Rumble, but YouTube. Should have gone out, and people should have known that we were broadcasting, but of course, no, YouTube killed that. They didn't want people to hear that. So let me go back over some of the comments here. So no one got notifications. Jan says that debates are outdated. I don't think so, Jan. I think that debates can be effective, but debates are really setups nowadays. They're meant to give slogans, not solutions. They're meant to be sound bites. And that's it. It's a soundbite factory. How fast and how many times can you give a soundbite to an answer within 3 minutes on an issue that literally, if you're seriously talking about the issue, takes at least 3 minutes to even give a serious question, let alone get the answer. These are things that take hours to answer. And we're not even giving these candidates more than, what, a minute and a half, 3 minutes, 30 seconds. So, and sometimes it's not serious. Debates aren't serious anymore. It's about who can give the best slogan to be able to fund their campaign. That's it. And that's kind of disappointing. And we need to get away from that. We need to get closer to Lincoln Douglas debates than what we have today, which are propaganda slogans. Let me see some of the other comments. Agent Black mentioned that this is all down to corruption, fake and biased media. I agree with you, Agent Black. I agree with you, Jan. They don't like what I was saying. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, and I understand. We had issues at the start of this, getting to the feed. We had some issues with our system set up. I understand that. But that has nothing to do with the content that we provided and the fact that they were trying to cut you out. They did not want you to hear an unapproved voice, and that's your problem. That's the problem, that social media. That's the fortification of the elections that we saw in 2020, as Newsweek told us after the election that was happening with tech giants and what's happening with some of the media companies, that they're fortifying elections to get the result they want, regardless of whatever it is you want. Jen mentions, so there was an app that we could have pulled up, but they took that app away. Yeah, so again, Fox limited the way people could see this, and that's a problem. Let's see. 86 million people watched the Trump interview. 86 million. Wow. 86.6 million people. I'm not surprised. And I guarantee you, a lot of the people left the Fox News debate to go to the Trump-Tucker Carlson discussion. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Fox did no one any benefits. They made no difference. If anything, I would expect that Trump's numbers are going to go higher. I think that Republicans are going to be backing Trump even more after this debate. And I stand by what I said before the debate. Trump the most trust and confidence in them, and I think they were the best choices. And Vivek is someone who will make it to the cabinet because I think he's got the energy, and in the future, 2028, he may run and actually be able to win something. But as for everyone else on that stage, forget it. I think they're done. Lost my sound? Okay. That's not my system. Okay. Okay. So that's some of the things that I thought about this. And again, it's pretty much what we expected as we put out on Twitter. This is what we said on Twitter at 7:52, just before the whole thing started up, before we went to the live stream. And what did we not hear about? We didn't hear anything about red flag laws. We barely touched on the issue of gun control. I mean, I think that was one question out of the entire event, and then it was gone. So, no, to be fair, 3 people got the question of gun control, which turned into a discussion about mental health, and then they just dropped it, which is ridiculous. We need to have that conversation as a nation. Online censorship did not get addressed, and yet it's critical. We did not hear anyone, not one candidate, not one, mentioned any of the 30,000 Americans that have been abandoned overseas in the last 3 years. Not one. And that is something I am pissed at all Republicans about. I don't care who they are. Every Republican, the ones I know in Congress, and yes, I know several of the members of Congress who are Republicans and a couple of them that are Democrats, and I can tell you, I'm pissed at every single one of them in Congress, including the Senate, for not addressing what's going on with these Americans. Also, former Congressman, now Lieutenant Governor of New York State, Antonio Delgado, who abandoned the New York 19th District, in part because he didn't want to answer the question, what's going on with the Americans in Afghanistan, in Ukraine, and in the Sudan? They're all ducking this. I'm so upset with everyone in Congress about this. And not enough people ask this question. No one in the news media is asking this question. I don't understand why. Well, actually, I do. Because it makes everyone look bad. Because it embarrasses the United States. Because we are embarrassed around the world. We need to deal with this. No one's going to take America seriously as we continue to abandon Americans in harm's way around the world. No one's going to take us seriously. I don't care who's in charge. I don't care whether you have an R or a D after your name. No one's going to take us seriously until we deal with that. And of course, fortifying elections really wasn't addressed either, so that was kind of upsetting. Jan says, I will agree with you that Senator Tim Scott won the debate, even though the questions weren't really of any substance. He did a good job of getting his views in, and also I think he was very good at being calm and being able to still show strength. He was calm, but he was assertive, and I think that's going to go a long way. I think he really did himself a favor there. Agent Black says, sound cut out for 10 seconds. Well, I don't think that the Tucker, I guarantee you that, and I said this at the beginning of the live stream here today, I said it several times, and I'll say it again. I have absolutely no doubt Tucker Carlson will get more views talking to Trump than Fox News got on this debate. Guaranteed. And if you could see the number of minutes, how many viewers, minute by minute by minute, I guarantee you that Fox News probably lost about 25% of its viewership from the number of people who first showed up as the debate started to the very end. I bet you there was a 25% difference. That 25% less people were watching the Fox News Republican debate at the end than the number of people who were watching in Trump. I bet you that Trump gained more people as he continued to talk with Tucker Carlson, as people were being lost by Fox News. Guarantee you. I am absolutely sure of that. But do I think that Tucker gets to 120 million? Maybe on replays, given enough time, but no, I think he maybe gets to 95, maybe 100 million views over the next, between now and September. Between now and September, it'll probably get to 100 million, and that's people going back, like the news media, like people like myself, who are going to go back, watch it once, twice, maybe 3 times, pulling off various clips. You're going to have a lot of people who are going to be searching that interview for clips and sound bites, and so you're going to get a lot of views from that. But people who are just watching it to watch it, yeah, maybe another 5, maybe 10 million people. Pretty much everyone who wanted to see this has already done so. You're not going to see a major increase. The real boost is going to be all the people trying to get sound bites out of it or looking for specific issue targets like me or some of the media. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. So I don't think you'll see 120 million. Closer to 100 million. Agent Black says, I think the question is, who will be the Democratic candidate? The Republican candidate is pretty much known. And I agree with you. The Republican is going to be Trump. And as much as Chris Christie disagrees with it, because Chris Christie has, obviously, he has a vested interest in this. Mike Pence has a vested interest in this. So, of course, they can't beat Trump. We know that. It's obvious to everyone. Just look at the numbers. Go to Real Clear Politics. Look up the current data. You'll see. They can't beat Trump. Not even close. Republicans don't want Mike Pence. They don't want Chris Christie. They don't even know who Doug is. And Asa's right there with him. They don't even know those guys. They're all out. So they need Trump to be arrested. They need Trump to be convicted. They need Trump to be locked up and barred from being able to run. None of the charges that are facing President Trump at this moment would stop him from being able to run for president or to be president, even if he was found guilty. Not one. So, things aren't looking very good for half of the people who are on the stage with the Fox debate. And as for who's going to run the Democratic Party, Democrats keep saying it's going to, well, what we know for a fact is Act Blue, several of the funders of MoveOn.org, they're going around to Senate Democrats in the Senate, and they're telling them, don't fundraise for anyone except Joe Biden. Otherwise, you will be punished. They already had that conversation that was on July 27th. They had all of the Senate Democrats pulled together, and they gave them the same speech, threatened every single one of the Senate Democrats, and said, if you fundraise for anyone except Joe Biden, we're gonna cut you off in your next election campaign. So we've already seen, and Democrats have already cut out any debates. So there are no debates because Joe Biden can't make it through a debate. He just can't. He's too old. He's lost his mental capability. He'll never be able to make it through the debate. So barring the fact that Biden falls over and is knocked unconscious and goes into a coma, other than that, he's going to be the candidate. Now, if Joe Biden were to, have some illness that stops him from being president, they're going to go with Kamala Harris. She's going to become, by the 25th Amendment, she would assume the presidency and she would carry forward her campaign. And I think that what you're looking at is who would she pick as her VP? And it wouldn't be RFK. It wouldn't be Marianne Williamson. It'll be Pete Buttigieg. That's the answer. So the answer is, if it isn't Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, it's going to be Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg. That's it. And you may actually see it become Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg somewhere next year, where it's too late for any of the Democratic candidates to surge and try and fill the gap. When it's too late. Jan had mentioned the only reason I stayed with the debate was because of me covering it and wanted to get your views while I came to my own conclusion. Well, again, I'm happy that people got to have their own conclusion. You got to hear the candidates. I'm probably going to watch the debate 2 or 3 more times. Why? Because I watch every debate 2 or 3 times. I'm going to watch Tucker's interview with Trump 2 or 3 times. Because I'm looking for different things than the average viewer. I don't care about whether they're nice and friendly. I could care less. I'm not looking for them to appeal to my emotions. I'm looking specifically for their answers to several of the questions versus what they've answered in the past. We have a long history here on this channel. I have a very long memory of what these candidates have said over the past 2-3 decades. So I'm listening for inconsistencies that I can then go back, look up, see what they said then versus what they're saying now. It's kind of like when Pence says he was responsible for everything that happened in the Trump administration. No. I remember very clearly that while Pence on 2 or 3 issues was the one talking to Congress, the person who was pushing every one of the issues in the Trump agenda was President Trump. He was front and center. He was the one talking to the American people, and he was the one talking to Congress. And smoothing out some of the bumps along the way on a couple of the issues was Mike Pence. But it was Trump who made the headway. It was Trump who pushed it through. In particular, when we hear Mike Pence say, well, I was responsible for getting the funding for the wall. No, you really weren't, Mike Pence. That was Trump. Trump was the one who got all the flack. He took all the heat. He was the one pushing it through. He was the one who's getting screamed at. Or did you forget that everyone was talking about Mexico didn't pay for the wall? I thought Mexico was going to pay for the wall. That was all on Trump, not Mike Pence, Trump. So don't take credit for something you didn't do, Mike Pence. That was very upsetting to me. So yeah, I'll be watching I watch all the debates 2-3 times. So thank you, Jan, for watching it with me. Thank you, Agent Black, for catching up with us as well. Let's see. Michelle Obama isn't going to jump into this. She wouldn't make it. Michelle Obama doesn't have a thick skin. She can't handle politics. She can't handle criticism. And as someone who has run for elected office twice, as someone who's been involved in politics, again, not presidential, but neither has she. Michelle Obama thinks she's been through the ringer because Barack was the one who got through the ringer. People were back and forth on what everything Barack was doing, not Michelle. Being the first lady is a big shield for a lot of the criticism that could be given to her. Michelle Obama cannot handle the kind of criticism she would receive in running for the presidency. She'll never do it. She can't handle it. And as much as people might initially give her money, I don't think she could have a speech that would make it through. We've heard her say, the first thing she's going to have to deal with is when she said, that being in the second term of Obama's administration was the first time that she felt proud of America. I'm sorry, you got to deal with that one first, lady. Answer that question. Resolve that. Yes, I remember what she said. I remember her answer to Boko Haram. What was the answer that Michelle Obama had for human trafficking, literal slavery by Boko Haram? What was her answer as the first lady, someone who could influence the world? Put out a hashtag. And Boko Haram and the nations around the world looked at her like she was stupid. Oh, I started a hashtag trend on Twitter because terrorists care about that. Because Boko Haram, a terrorist group that literally kidnaps women and sells them into slavery, like they care whether their Twitter account has a bunch of hashtags saying, oh, they're bad guys. They don't care. And that was Michelle Obama's answer. Not to try and go to Africa to raise awareness, to try and raise funds to get those kids back, to try and raise money to teach women to have self-defense in Africa, to be able to send them firearms, which you can't get in America, but we give it to other countries. She didn't do anything like that. No, she got a hashtag campaign. Yeah, Michelle Obama will never make it as a politician at any level. She can't handle criticism, and she has no plan. I think Sunday's show will be good. The live stream, I think, will be good. Whether or not people saw this one doesn't matter. And I don't expect that they will, because it's a Republican debate with a conservative Republican black man talking about the Republican debate. I expect that this is going to be buried by YouTube, by Facebook, by Twitter. They're just going to kill it. But that's okay. I did it anyway, because I think it was important. But that being said, we've been on for, 3 hours? Yeah, a little over 3 hours. So I think we answered a lot of the questions. I think we got it clear on what my feelings about the debate were. I'm interested in seeing what people's responses will be, both before and after the debate. We put out a short earlier, just before the actual debate started. I hope people are answering the question asked in that short, and I'll be looking forward to seeing comments on this. And of course, by Sunday, we'll do a little bit of a wrap-up talking about this, Tucker Carlson, a couple of other issues that have been happening throughout the week. And I'm looking forward to seeing what other people have to say. Jan, Agent Black, thank you guys. I know it's late. It's the middle of the week. I know, Agent Black, it's like the middle of the night for you. You need to go to sleep. Matter of fact, it's about time for you to wake up and go to work. I feel bad for you, man. Yeah, I know. It's 6 a.m. there. It's time for you to get ready to go to work. But thank you in the UK for letting me start your day. For in the United States, especially on the East Coast, thank you for being with me as you end your night. I want you to be well. I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. Keep an eye out for more of our shorts and also some of the other videos we're going to do throughout the week. Thank you, guys.